I'd like to call this, it's just a couple of minutes after 7, I'd like to call this August 16th meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Can I have acceptance of the agenda? Second by Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any walk-ins this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report of the Town Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several items to go over this evening, so I'll go through them as quickly and as intelligently as I can. For the public facilities update, the weather, despite the lack of the rain, continues to move the projects along on schedule, so we're really on time in terms of the construction phases of that building. The Public Building Commission had a site visit of the library last Tuesday. It's very impressive. The building's coming along nicely, and we were inside before it starts to get closed up for the interior work. The windows were loaded last week, and if you haven't been by there, it's really quite the sight to see. The Public Safety Building also continues to move along. You'll see the monopole erected in the next week or so for the radio communications. I did want to make an announcement that on August 31st at the Lighthouse at 6 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. there is a sunrise service sponsored by Scituate Facts for anybody who's lost a loved one, and we encourage people to come out and support Facts and also any loved ones in the community. Last week, Lorraine Devon of your office put together a training program for all staff and board and committee members on the newly issued board and committee handbook. It was really well attended, and she did a great job. There are 3 more of those scheduled next month, so if you haven't signed up for them, we encourage all board and committee people and other staff to go. It includes all the updates for the open meeting law and the public records law that will go into effect January 1, but we're also already complying with. Today at Cushing School and tomorrow, I believe, at Jenkins, the fire department and the police department are conducting joint active shooter exercises, day-long exercises. So our town is prepared in the case of an active shooter. Both the chiefs have been working very closely on this with most of the department. And so that's, if you saw a bunch of fire engines and police vehicles at Cushing today, that's what that was about. And tomorrow, they will be at Jenkins. I have 2 more items that I want to discuss with the board, but those are not my information to share. But first, I want to ask Nancy Durfee, our Coastal Resource Officer, to come up before the board. She has some news to share with the board.
So, hi.
How are you, Nancy?
On Friday, we received notice from the ISO specialist from the CRS program that we are now a Class 7 community. We have dropped from a Class 8 to a Class 7, which means a 15% discount to all homeowners in Scituate that have flood insurance. So it'll save them on their flood insurance premiums.
Congratulations. That's great, Nancy.
Yes! I'm so excited for this community to have this.
To you and all your committee members, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna name them off, but I'd like to say that this effort's been ongoing long before I got here, and really the community was doing a lot of things that they weren't getting credit for, and it was identified, through doing the research and things like that. Our committee, Dave Ball, sitting right behind me. Are you excited?
I am.
I know, you pushed. Doris Crary, Rosemary Doby, Linda Murray, and Michael Ruthkowski. And they all provided a lot of background information and assistance throughout this process. Mike helped with the mapping, which was really huge. I think it was a big help for the extra credits, as well as Richard Harding from the Conservation Commission assisted with searching the deeds for all the parcels in the open space that are in the floodplain. That gave us extra credit as well, and I think open space really knocked us out of the ballpark. for the scoring. So we received a total of 1,703 credits this time. We had 1,001, what did I say, 100? I meant 1,703 credits. We had 1,158 credits, so it's just very exciting. So the folks that need to get credit, Dave Ball and all the CRS committee, but also we have all the department heads and their staff that help put all this information together. I hunt them down, and I don't hunt them down. I search them out, and we work together to make sure that we have all the necessary documentation. So that would be Patrick Galvin and Carol Long, who help from the Conservation Department. We have Laura Harbottle in the Planning Department with Karen Joseph, as well as Kevin Cafferty and Sean McCarthy and Chrissy Chesia. They all assist. In the Building Department, it was Neil Duggan, even though he's retired. He does a lot of CRS activities, and he's handed that down to Robert Vogel, who's also big, and Maureen Galvin. Also, huge help. Big shouts out for all those folks. So I'm very excited.
So what Nancy's not saying is the town of Scituate is the only town in Massachusetts that has a 7 rating.
Wow,
Yay.
that's awesome.
So that makes it all the more impressive.
Yeah, I'm competitive.
At 1%, what's the difference in money? Do we know?
10 to 15.
The average, the average
That's 1%.
is, the average premium is about $1,700, so you take 15% of that, and it's about
We had
500.
10 before, so.
So
Yeah.
10 would be what, like a
Yep,
10% for an 8?
170, yeah.
Okay, so 5%?
So we have a press release going out, and Maura has a copy of it, and just huge kudos to Nancy and the CRS team and the committee for the work. This is really huge news.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. Happy for everybody.
So the next thing, if I may, Mr. Chair, is to combine items 2 and 3 and ask Kevin Cafferty and is Sean here, Kevin, or? Sean is not. Okay, to come up and give us an update on the water shortage and also talk about how our water ban is going.
How are you, Kevin?
Good, thank you. Okay, talking about the water ban. So far, the water ban's been successful with what we're receiving on some of what we're reading on the rates. Between the 9th and the 16th, our reservoir dropped about 2.8 inches, where from the 1st to the 8th prior, it dropped about 3.75. So that shows all the restrictions are working. Back in mid-July, we had drops of over 6.5 inches. So that shows with all the restrictions what's happening and what's going on.
Kevin, I hate to do this, but can you start over again?
Sure. Over the water usage update. From August 9th to the 16th, we're dropping about 2.8 inches. With the restrictions from the 1st to the 8th, we're about 3.75 inches. So that shows the restrictions are working. Back in July, we had, on average, we were dropping 6.5 inches per week in the reservoir. So that shows things are working, and we're working with the wells to try to maximize what we can get out of them. Rain this past week, we got about 1/3 of an inch total with what we had over this. We've also been reaching out to some of the other towns in the area. We met with Marshfield to see if they could supply water in case we needed it. They have some issues with their Spring Street line, and we looked at some different ways of what we could do of possibly bringing water in. We've also met with Cohasset and talked about, we have 2 interconnections with Cohasset, one on Summer Street and one on Mordecai Lincoln, and we're in discussions with them. We're still talking to them about it. We're also looking at the chemistry of the waters, of what we'd have to do when they commingle. Where that becomes an issue, we have fluoride in our water, so if we didn't have fluoride, they don't have fluoride, so we'd have less fluoride in our water when it comes in. And also, the water department wants to look at what corrosive additives they install to see if there'd be any confusion or any problems that we'd have with our water. We've reached out to Norwell. Norwell is having similar restrictions, and they said they're right behind us. We've also reached out to Hanover. They're under similar restrictions. We've also gone out to Abington and Rockland about the restrictions, and we will be meeting tomorrow with some of the South Shore towns and the water supervisors to have a discussion about what's going on with the different communities.
So Kevin, so who has water that we can buy from?
That's what we're looking at, is Marshfield has some, but they don't have the capacity to get it over to us. We don't have an interconnection. Cohasset's looking at what they have for reserves, and possibly we could purchase some from them. But that hasn't been confirmed yet, but it's stuff we're working on.
Okay, but we talked about this 2 weeks ago, right? And we knew we knew it was tough then. It's only, hasn't rained at all since then. So we lost 2 weeks of figuring out what we're gonna do. I mean, we only have 20-something.
We didn't lose 2 weeks. We've been working nonstop on this since the last board meeting, Tony.
There's a meeting tomorrow?
This is
No,
the second
I've already
meeting.
I've already met with Cohasset, and we made notice to them right away. We've already been discussing this with Cohasset. We went to one of their water boards. They're not saying they have tons of water. They're looking into what they have available, if it is available, and then they'll take a vote with their water board. So it isn't something that they said, oh yeah, we have an extra, a lot of water. We told them what we would possibly be looking for, and it is in discussion.
Basically, what's happening is, people are being very cautious about whether they're going to say, we're going to give Scituate water, so that's what the meeting about is tomorrow. And as Tricia said, this has been going on for 2 weeks, really, since our
Oh, I
last
know,
meeting.
I've been emailing back and forth, I've been asking for plans, I've been asking
Right.
we talked about wheeling, so I don't know.
But, Marshfield looks like a possibility, but, it's...
Marshfield has restrictions.
Marshfield, they all have restrictions.
Right.
Every town's been affected one way or the other. We talked to Marshfield, one of the issues that they have is the well it would have to come from, the tower would come from, would be down Spring Street, and Spring Street's scheduled to be replaced in the near future. We also don't have an interconnection, so we'd have to kind of run a temporary line basically from Neilgate over to by Rotes in order to bring that in. And they're concerned about what type of pressure problems they would have with the water coming from the well on Spring Street. They've had a lot of breaks, and that line's scheduled to be replaced next year for $1.8 million. So we have been in discussion with the other towns.
Right, so if they say no, then what do we do? Because 2 weeks ago, we talked about wheeling and saying, okay, if Marshfield doesn't have it, then we go one town over, and we go one town over, and we pump it through all these systems, and eventually it gets to Scituate.
And that's what we're trying to do. The other towns have similar restrictions, so they're not saying yes, no, or anything to that effect.
How does the town vote? Their water commissioners will vote, and every town's different. Some are...
Cohasset has water commissioners. We met with the DPW director for Marshfield.
So each town it's a little different how it goes.
Correct. And Marshfield's worried about, obviously, their infrastructure that leads up to that for what they need for water. We also brought up the other option. Maybe they could wheel it through, they could cross Bridge Street into Norwell and bring it into Norwell. They've got problems on that street that it's only a 6-inch AC line, and they're concerned about that. Those are a couple things they're looking into, but they did not commit to anything. Neither did Cohasset.
And I think realistically, these people are all having water problems too. They're not going to give their water to us. They're
Right, but
put
we
themselves further at risk.
still want to try to do everything we can to have a backup plan with regards to the water.
Oh, I think we have to, right?
Yeah, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, so if these, I guess my problem is, if these surrounding communities, which I would bet are going to say no, we're not going to give the little bit of water we have to Scituate, how do we get further away and do that wheeling thing that we were talking about before? Where we get to a community that actually is getting some rain.
And that's some of the things we're looking into. That's why I reached out to Hanover and go out further and see where we could come up with something.
Realistically, how far out can you go?
When I started talking about this, one of the things that I brought up is the chemistry between the different waters from town to town. Some towns have fluoride and other towns don't. So obviously you wouldn't want to put water in from a fluoride town into a town that doesn't have fluoride because you have the potential of kids taking fluoride pills.
The good news is that we do have fluoride. So
No, we do have fluoride, but there's other towns to take into consideration. But we're looking at everything we can. We're trying to come up with everything that we can in order to come up with a backup plan for water.
So,
How many days, sorry, do you think we have now?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head. I'd talk to Sean about it and see what we can. It's kind of, it depends on our usage, and there's a bunch of factors that go with that.
But at least the drop is about half of what it was a month ago.
Drop is going down from what it was, yes.
Before the consultation.
And we're hoping, the 5th is Labor Day, we're hoping that we could get back closer to what we pump in the winter, of what we do in the winter, and see how the pumps can handle things.
But if you read the full report, I mean, we haven't been looking at anything like this since the 1990s, I believe it was.
I think in the 1990s, Scituate wheeled water from Cohasset, or they brought water in from Cohasset when they ran out of water before through Mordecai Lincoln.
So Kevin, it's at 23%, right? Right now, the reservoir, but that's only one indicator.
I think it's 24.8, yes.
24 right now. But that's only one indicator of our overall water level, right?
Right, we're supplied, we have two ways we get the water. The water is from wells, we use our wells, and that takes closer to 57 to 60% of our water, and the remainder is used with the reservoir for what the overflow is.
So what's that threshold that we're going to look at that says, okay, we've got to go out and get it?
Our threshold typically that we'd like to add, if we were at 10% in the reservoir, we would definitely be, if we had an agreement at that time, we would probably be tying in at that point.
Okay.
And that's one of the discussions we've had with the water department. But it also depends on what our usage is.
Right.
If our usage is down significantly and we can get by with the 10% and handle it with the pumps, we would try to do the pumps and just handle our water with the pumps. And, hopefully in that meantime, we get some rain or something to that effect.
I mean, I agree with Tony. I think our planning just needs to be a little bit more fast-tracked, because I don't see any rain in the forecast, and I know none of us do.
Well,
Difficult to answer.
Planning-wise,
Everyone's concerned, everyone
Right.
in this room, everyone in the town. I think we just need to put people at ease to let them know that, yeah, we do have a plan in place, whatever it may be, and it will kick in at X point. And that's,
no, I understand 100%, and that's why we've been reaching out to all these other towns. We are the first town in the area that's been reaching out to other towns. As I said, after the last meeting, we had contacted Hanover, we went out as far as Rockland, Abington. We talked about getting this meeting set up. It's probably going to be in Hingham tomorrow, just to look at things. And a lot of towns don't want to commit to anything because they don't know what their status is either with the drought. So it's kind of hard per se. I mean, we met with the Cohasset Water Board and explained our situation and laid all our cards on the table. And they looked at it and said, okay, we have to have we're going to discuss this in a private meeting, and, we'll discuss it and we'll get back to you about it. And we told them where we were going. So we have been doing due diligence in that part about reaching out to everybody.
Yeah, Kevin, question. Hingham and Hull, and I forget who else, don't they have like a private water company?
They have Aquarian that works on it.
And
Yep.
where are they getting their water from? Are they piping it in, or where?
MWRA or no?
No, I think they have pumps also, I believe. I mean, I don't know their system that well, but hopefully we find something out tomorrow also.
I was just curious, because that would be one possible solution if they have excess wherever they're getting it and pumping it from. That was
North Cohasset is also that same company.
Right, North Cohasset. As we are looking at, or as I'm looking into this further, it gets trickier and trickier to wheel in from the other towns, because you have to have the other town buy in that they're going to take the other town's water.
I mean, I do a lot of work in Cohasset, and I've got a couple of stories I'll share when we get to the next part, but...
So
the Cohasset's
our
nice.
options right now is just wheeling it from other towns. I mean, I guess if this gets down to 10%, then what other options are there besides wheeling?
We're going to look at what our usage is at that point, and we'll go from that point. We do have 60% of our water produced, from the wells. Hopefully, as I said, after Labor Day, we're in better shape. With
You
our usage.
mentioned Marshfield's taking off their well. Is it Spring Street or something? Or are they
It's the water line that distributes the water. It's the water line itself that runs down Spring Street. He said it's about a 25-year-old plastic line that keeps breaking on them. I think they've had 30 breaks in the past 25 years, so they said it's in bad shape.
Just out of curiosity, going forward, once this is hopefully resolved shortly and we get more water and everything, I have some future questions to say, okay, what about potential future wells, things that we need to look at? What about augmenting or creating a new reservoir somewhere else? Issues that we need to address, maybe with Water Commission to take a look at.
Long-term, yes, we have another well that's offline because of the content of manganese that it has on it. That's one of the things that we're looking into is a green filtration system. I think that well could add us 200 to maybe even 300 gallons per day, 2,000 gallons per day into the system, which would be a huge, huge bump. We are looking into that, and I think, yes, we have to look at possibly a new well in the future and maybe even expansion to the reservoir.
So we talked, last meeting, we talked about getting some sort of indicator as to where the wells were, because you give us the reading off of the reservoir, but there was, I think you brought it up, about how we can see, are the wells decreasing as well?
There is a decrease in the wells. You know, I wasn't expecting that question. I think it's down about 12% that we're down. I'd have to confirm with Sean, but I can forward that out to the board. And get that data.
12% from what would be?
12 to 17%, somewhere in that area, because of the water tables down.
Okay.
With the
From
drop.
2 weeks ago?
No, just down from
Just the
all
water
year.
table itself?
Just the water table
Yeah.
itself.
Right.
It didn't drop that much from 2 weeks. We're still pumping, our 882,000 gallons.
Sean?
Well, Steve, you and Tricia are here, we're on the subject. What are we doing with the marinas? As far as people washing their boats?
So they're not allowed to wash the boats. Stephen has been very clear that all of that's been restricted. That was restricted over 2 weeks ago. The golf course, which this town has a multi-million-dollar investment in, is restricted to not even hardly watering the greens. They're looking at bringing a well, an abandoned well, that should be operational Thursday. Kevin already mentioned the well that we have with manganese in it that DEP wouldn't allow us to use, and if we could open that up in the future, that would pour into the reservoir, and the manganese would be distributed so that the manganese would, not be as concentrated as is in the well. So,
And if I can clarify,
Yeah.
I believe it's well 18A, and that does go over to the reservoir, and it gets
Yeah.
treated through there, so
Right.
that helps, but it doesn't go directly into the system like the other wells.
Right. And then, the other thing that we've done since the board's last meeting is Kevin's met with the fire chief to make sure we have adequate water protection. The tanks are always full, and so that's something. The other thing, long-term, John, to your question, is to developing MOUs with Norwell, Cohasset, and Marshfield if this happens again. In Cohasset, the gates are actually brand new, and so if Cohasset agrees to give us water, that's the easiest solution for us to wheel water in. Except, as you noted, they have a private water company, so I would suspect that even if they're amenable to giving us water, the Board of Selectmen are going to need to weigh in. So we've been on the phone asking for the meetings. It took time to schedule the meetings. We've also been in touch. I spoke with the town administrator in Marshfield today about us reaching out to their elected Board of Public Works, and they have assured us that they would keep in touch with us to make sure the dialogue was continuing. So we've been attacking it from a number of different fronts. We have about, I would say, on average, 6 weeks of water, and the huge thing is going to be conservation and when the summer population leaves after Labor Day. Those two huge things alone will help us tremendously, and as you've seen on Facebook, the conservation efforts are helping tremendously, and, we just have to hope for a wet September.
What did it, last year, what did the water usage change after Labor Day? From what to what?
I believe last year some of the restrictions were lifted, and we were, I'm not going to probably be able to give you an accurate number, but I'm going
Seems
to
like we
say...
started getting more and more rain, which we haven't.
We did
had
get
at
more
this
rain. We got like 7 and 9 inches or something of rain in the
Less-
2 months after that. We got
less
significant
evaporation.
rain. So without having the data in front of me, I
No,
couldn't give you a good
understand.
number
I
on it.
guess, if you can't tell, I'm really concerned about this. I don't know,
Yep.
what do you do? I think if we're thinking we're going to borrow water from the surrounding people that haven't gotten rain either, then we're relying on a bad source. I don't think it's going to happen. So I think we've got to have another plan in place. I mean, what does it take to get whatever the device is that gets magnesium out of that well started in 32 days? If that's what we have to do, we can't not have water.
Correct. Correct. No, we agree with that. I agree with that 100%, Tony. It's not as easy as that. You have to get the green filter system set up. It's not a quick fix on that. And our hope is that we can maintain some of what we have with our well system.
Is the DEP requirement already there for that? Or do we have to go through them as well before we go?
For the green filter system? Yeah, we have to go through the DEP and come up with a design and plans and everything else. It's not an overnight issue.
To Tony's point, the reason why I'm concerned too with it is, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we had this drought that started in July, and we didn't take the band off until like December, when it snowed. And my fear is, if this is one of those years, that we're not going to get any precipitation. To Tony's point, what is it going to take for us under urgent situations? Water is the most important thing that we have to provide to this town. So I'm sitting here going, what would it take to maybe think about the cost for opening up that well? Getting in contact with DEP, they certainly know we're in a drought situation, so they're not going to, I would assume, are not going to, scrutinize everything, because they know we need the water. Everybody needs the water.
And
that's
we
all I'm
are
thinking.
We are processing that water. We've got it going into Old Oaken Bucket, and we are processing that water. It's not going directly to the system. It's going through the treatment plant.
I just, if it's easier to do it initially the way that we, I guess what I'm thinking of is, in the past, we've talked about the wells, we've talked about, I have not experienced this. Obviously, 20-some-odd years ago we did, but clearly, I think this is a situation that everybody now needs to be aware, and it's a major priority for water. The well is an issue. Making partnerships or collaboratives with some memorandum of understanding, looking at other alternatives with, I think we really need to think about this going forward. And once this is over and, we get focused on the budget, I really don't want this to be off the radar screen. I think we need to look at it, because if it doesn't happen again next year, it could happen in another 2 years or 3 years. And if it gets worse, at 10%, that's a scary proposition. Because I know, Tricia, to your point that, people may be leaving after September 5th, but the reality is, if we have this drought going further, it's irrelevant about the numbers. It's the lack of water. That's all.
Right.
Kevin, did you say we're using that well now? We're just treating the water?
The well is treated, we're pushing some of the water over to the water is dumped into the reservoir, our Old Oaken Bucket, and that's used to supplement some of the water that goes through the treatment
So
plant.
that isn't found water then? We're using it now?
Right, we're using that now.
I didn't understand that 2 minutes ago. That's not what
Okay.
I did. Anyone else understand it that way?
No, I thought it was offline.
Well, what's the one that's the one I'm thinking of? Is it the one off Hollitt Street? Isn't that the one that says the
Is that what we're
magnesium?
talking about?
Is that the
That's what I
one,
was gonna
18A, or are we talking about, which one are you talking about, Kevin?
Countryway in Holland, behind there, it was near the tracks. If that's the one we're talking about, I'm not sure. I thought that was the Dolan well.
That's the one I always thought was offline completely.
Right. 'Cause-
No, that's not the one we're
But
talking
then
about.
that's a potential...
That's a potential well source, I believe, in there.
Problem is, the tracks ran so close to it, but when Paul Reedy was on this board, we talked about directional drilling to get it away from the tracks. It had to be so many feet away. So if that's on it, where's the well you're talking about?
It is in the west end, and I'd have to get my numbers straight. I'm not exactly sure which one it is, to tell you, say it's this location.
And the one on Torrey's Lane, we're not using it at all.
No.
What would it take to, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but, if you don't know the answer, could you get it? What would it take to get that up and running? Put it through the plant, not just put it out into the...
Well, you'd have to run pipe to it, and it was shut down for a reason. It had some reason that it wasn't making the quality of water.
Golf course, if I'm not mistaken. But, maybe it can be fixed to Tony's point, maybe.
And we're looking at every option. The water department's looking at every option. We're working diligently on it. I've spent pretty much, and Tricia's been involved in it too. We've been looking at everything with what we can do for water.
And I mentioned at the last meeting, I know it takes time and all that, but, we might have to wait another year or longer to increase our capacity at the reservoir. Pull all the stumps up, and, we could generate a lot of cubic yards of material that would come out.
Two of the wells, they're on the capital plan, so it's not like we started looking at them. Kevin's had two of the wells, 17 and 19, I think, but don't hold me to that. They've been on the capital plan for the last 3 years. They're expensive to bring online.
17's on 123,
Yeah,
I think, isn't it?
I can't remember, but there's two that are on the capital plan and have been.
All right.
So how are we leaving this? So you're meeting with somebody tomorrow to hope that we can...
We're meeting with some of the other communities, but I haven't got a confirmatory action from either one of the communities. What we did say is, when we met with Cohasset, obviously if we had fire needs, they would definitely help out and turn the interconnect on. That wouldn't be a problem. They wouldn't say they wouldn't do it if we had a fire or some sort of emergency. I also spoke to John Murphy the other day about it, and he was going to contact MEMA, and if we get down to that position, he would request some fire tankers to maybe set up in the west end or somewhere in the area. So if any of the towns in the area needed water, we'd have added water to bring up to those locations.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'll ask at the end.
So, somebody else said, what about desalinization? Desalinization plant for a 2 million gallon a day system similar to what we have would be about $20 million to get a plant up and running. That was a ballpark I got from one of the engineering firms.
But can't we look at segmenting some of, like, the golf course, pulling that offline and doing a small salinization?
What we're doing with the golf course is, there is a well, which is off Kent Street, that we're rehabilitating right now to get them water from that. That's not going to affect the water system. So that well has been cleaned. It's being treated now chemically, and we hope to have the well pretty much square by Thursday, and later in the week, have a new pump installed and have that up in line for the golf course.
So can we get some readings on the well? Some statistics on that? And I know that you've started putting on our Facebook page what the daily usage is. I think that's, the public needs to know whether their conservation efforts are helping or not. So
They're definitely helping. They really, really are. I
they
can't
need
say...
to know that yesterday you used 400,000 gallons less than the day before, and people have to start taking whatever actions they can. Because we don't want to get to the point where, where we don't have an answer for, right?
Right.
And I think Marty had a good, we're going to have to buy water from somebody that's selling it, not somebody that has it. So, that company that what'd you say, Hang Up or Haul?
Aquarium.
Those are the sources I think.
Cohasset's interesting because most of Cohasset has their own supply. Like North Cohasset is on Aquarian with Hingham. So just to clarify that if we were able to get water from Cohasset, it would be from Cohasset, not from Aquarian. Because that gate that we're talking about, everything, that has nothing to do with the water company. That has to do with Cohasset themselves. So.
Well, it's funny, because that was the question I was going to interrupt you on, only because we spent a lot of money in the West End for open space conservation that goes into Cohasset, millions of dollars. And so now's the time where we've preserved water for Cohasset, we absolutely might need it. And I'm hopeful that the commissioners are going to share it, considering that we're helping them in their water situation. We need it in ours.
Anybody have more questions? Because Kevin's going to move on to the next part of this.
No, thank you, Kevin.
No, I wish I had better news, and I wish I looked out now and saw it raining right now, believe me.
Looked like it was going a little bit ago, and then it went away. So next, is it a vote or discussion? Anyway, discussion for sure. A water ban extension to private wells. The reason that I asked for this to be on the agenda is, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, the water table in general is down, which means that even though people are drawing from private wells, they're also drawing on the aquifer, which is dropping the water levels. I have some very close friends that live in Cohasset whose well just went dry, and they don't have any option. They're not hooked up to the town water at all. So that could, in effect, happen to other people in this town, and I spoke to Kevin earlier today. There are some homes in this town that do not have town water. They have strictly well water. So just so people understand, even though they have a private well, I'd love to see people conserving instead of running and, watering their lawns every day. Legally, I don't know if there's anything we can do, but I mean, I'm seeing it happening. And again, back to Cohasset, when someone's well dries up, what do? So, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, the only thing we had talked about is potentially switching putting some restrictions or looking for voluntary restrictions on the wells of maybe watering 2 days a week, a Tuesday or a Friday or something to that effect. But I think it has to come from the Board of Health.
Right.
And it could be maybe a recommendation from the Selectmen that the Board of Health review it and take a look at it.
Yeah, I believe Jen's done a lot of work on it already.
She started a program, and she's run into some different issues.
Right.
How many wells are we talking about? People who have private wells are drawing from? Do we have an idea?
Generally,
So there are 2 sets of anecdotal lists.
Jen, can you come up just so everybody can hear you?
We should have had her as...
There are 2 historical anecdotal lists of private wells. The Water Department has historically held the private well list, and as a requirement, they have to register their wells with the Water Department and then receive a sign from the Water Department so that it's publicly displayed by the street, so that folks know that you have a private well on the property, whether it's irrigation or potable. So they have a list of registered wells. We have been coordinating with them and subsequently developing an anecdotal list of wells that neither department was ever aware of. So in the past 2 years that I've been here, we've discovered approximately 30 wells that weren't registered with the Water Department that we know exist. We don't have any data on them at this point. We've also recently started to check, Mass DEP has a really great website called Well Search. So you can look at any registered well where a licensed well driller drilled the well, registered it with the state, which they're required to do by law, and we can get the data on those wells, where they're drilled, how deep they are, whatever record is available, we can pull it down, and we're starting to kind of combine all 3 lists so that we have a comprehensive list of known wells in the town. The anecdotal list that I have is about 30 wells. Since I've started, about 2 years ago, we've had 6 wells installed and registered with both departments for irrigation. To your point of that there are some wells that are for potable usage, Border Street. There are quite a few wells on Border Street that don't have access to public water, so they have potable wells.
That's the street.
Summit Street also have a couple.
Okay.
So 30 is your estimate?
The anecdotal list that I have is 30. The Water Department has the official registered list, and I don't know how many is on that. We're just starting to now commingle those lists since we're coordinating any new private wells. It's a new venture.
Sean?
Jen, do you recall the meeting you had with the well drillers in the audience?
Yes.
8 months ago? What did they say when, a person has them? I remember there were 3 generations of well drillers, one company, older guy, middle-aged, and son. And he said if he drills a well, certain depth or certain type of well, won't necessarily take water from this area, it could come from New Hampshire. That's very important. That's what, and that's all this. One second.
Pick up on that?
1 second, Doug Marty will recognize you know more about it than I do. I just learned a lot that night. And this guy, that's all this guy has ever done in his life. So for me to sit here, and I know we're in a tough situation, for me to sit here and go tell someone they can't use their own private well, I don't know if I can do that, based on what he told me, told the whole group.
It sounds like, are we doing it to protect our own aquifer, or are we doing it to protect the people with the well so they don't run out of their own water?
Well, could be a little bit of both, because, and I know Jen, in her, Jen has a lot of information about wells, because her and I had a lengthy discussion a few weeks ago, as far as how different things work on wells, and it's very mind-boggling. And I,
Well, what are we thinking about doing this for? To protect our own aquifer, or to tell?
it would be the aquifer.
So we're trying to have people not use the water, and that goes...
Whether not use it, or at least certainly conserve it.
Conserve, I have no problem.
Right.
Nancy?
I would just add that when you live on the coast and you
draw from your well, if you draw it down too low, you can have saltwater intrusion. So if they draw it down too far and the saltwater lands is close, it will then infiltrate their well, and then they will have a bigger problem than they had before. And I've seen it happen in other communities, and new water had to be brought in by a new pipeline, and it took a long time. And they were not able to use their water, and they would have to have bottled water and shower in other locations.
It'll happen at Hadley Country Club right now, if they pull them down.
So yeah, so if they pull it down too far, it's their own wells too that they should be concerned about. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, just name and address if you would.
Yeah, Doug Litchfield, 196 Old Oakenbuck Road. I own a nursery, and I went through the drought in the early 90s, and that was 3 years. This is something that people forget about. That was a 3-year stretch. It forced me to put in an artesian well. I'm drawing from a different source of water than the town is. I'm 650 feet deep, and I want to continue to use that well. My livelihood depends on that. As a matter of fact, I'm the one responsible for all the containers down in Front Street. There's 38 containers down there that I take care of. The fountain I put in front of Sylvia's this year, I'm watering that with water out of my well because of the restrictions with town water, and I'm trying to maintain that. But the thing is, there are a lot of people in town that have artesian wells. It's a different source of water. The well driver told me when I did the research on this, and when he told me the deeper you go, the further away you're getting water. My water could be coming from Canada.
As you were saying.
And when I had it analyzed, it's so much different than Scituate water. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like day and night.
Thank you. Thanks for the information.
My only thought on that is it could be from Canada, but it could not be. You know, you're digging a hole.
Yes, but I had it analyzed. You can tell just by the readout.
I don't know much about water, but I know if you dig a hole, you may get to, I mean, it's a bunch of rivers, I think someone explained it to us, deep underground, but you could go through a river that's a mile, you know, at 100 feet and 600 feet. So you could impact local water as well.
Yes.
Martha Cook, 3 Acorn Street. I'm a member of the Town Water Resources Committee. In respect to what Jen said, some of the existing wells in town are so old they do predate the records that are held by Water and Health. But the current active wells that are registered with the town right now number closer between 50 and 75. Again, most people don't use that for their potable water system. A few do. Most of them are irrigation wells. Currently, other towns do have regs that make any water in town used for any purpose all fall under the same set of guidelines. So, for instance, Middleton, it doesn't matter if when I turn on the tap, my water came from a town well or the town reservoir or a well in my own yard. Found other towns have experimented with this. One town, it got voted down, it got voted in, it got voted out. They're having kind of a seesaw because they have a lot more people on their town wells so that they can get a voting block at town meeting to really make a difference. I think what might help us is that, for instance, the way we have our precinct voting day, watering day, you can't right now legislate that a private well owner must adhere to that.
Correct.
But you can respectfully ask,
Right.
and you can provide them with information that proves that a lot of those wells do affect our wells. Now again, he's in a unique situation. Most people don't put in a well
That deep.
the way his is. But he is a commercial situation. No matter what you decide about private well owners, that's not going to affect Mr. Litchfield because his business depends on water.
Correct. Right.
So that unless the reason somebody put a well in, for instance, the golf club, a grower, you know, agricultural, they're exempt no matter what happens. But we know scientifically, particularly if homeowners are clustered around one of the locations of one of our town wells, it definitely has an impact. And right now, unfortunately, you can't legislate that, but you can ask all of those people, and again, it's closer to 50 to 75, to please consider reducing their water usage. I think some are. I mean, we know that because they have a sign. They're legally required to have a sign that says it's a private well, and we know that they are cutting back, and we appreciate it because it's clearly making a difference. But some aren't. You know, some of the people who have private wells are watering their grass
Every single day. Yep, I've seen it.
You know, they're legally allowed to do that. As you said, they run the risk of running out of their own water, and then what are they going to do?
Right, exactly.
But you could say, if you're in precinct 1, please just water one day a week.
Thank you, Martha.
So I want to clarify what actually is on the board's agenda and why we're having this discussion. We have been asking private well users to voluntarily conserve, just in fairness and equity for the rest of the folks who are on municipal water. If there's a fire at a private well user, that's going to be put out with municipal water. However, without a bylaw in place that's approved by town meeting and the Attorney General, we can't restrict it. There's a handful of communities, you have the memo in your packet, thanks to Jen, that have put in restrictions when there's a situation such like this that town meeting has approved. One particular community had it in place, and then by petition the next year, it was repealed. So it's a very sensitive issue, and I just want to be clear that people understand that the discussion we're having is not tonight to tell private well users they cannot use their water. What we're saying is we want you to voluntarily conserve, as Martha mentioned, like the rest of the town, and that if this is something the board is interested in having the Board of Health further explore in terms of more research or a bylaw, that's the discussion before the board. And we're, again, just asking them to voluntarily doing it in, parity with the rest of the town.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody from the audience have anything else on that? So, do you want to do a...
Well, we don't have to do anything because we can't legislate it. So, I mean, we're respectfully requesting, as Trish said, for private well owners to continue to conserve. And I think, in my opinion, that's all we can continue to do at this point. Sure, I'd love Jen to do some research, but not unless it's I don't want to waste her time unless it's an article that we're committed to putting on the warrant.
Right.
An annual town meeting.
Well, as far as the well owner, the people that we do know that have wells, maybe we can reach out to them either by letter or something and just ask them to conserve. I mean, not everybody in town watches the meeting, but, I mean, I'd like to just ask people, there's people that come to mind, I'd like to knock on their door, but it's not really my business to do it. That, when I see sprinklers running for 3 hours, I don't really think that's necessary when it's running down the street. So...
We made our point, maybe the press will put something in the newspaper as well.
It's on the website, it's on the Facebook page. I think there's been at least one newspaper article on already, so, we can get it out there more.
End of
Jen, this
discussion.
information was great, thanks.
Yeah, a lot of work in that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Jen, thank you, Kevin, thank you, Nancy.
So we're saying we don't want her to research it anymore? Is that...
Correct. We're just going to ask people to voluntarily conserve, the people with wells. And I think it's going to help them in the long run as well.
So I think what we should do is this. Let's just table it for a while. Depending on what happens in the next few weeks, this issue is probably not dead, so to speak. And I would say if this continues and continues, that I think I would certainly be one to ask the Board of Health to explore a potential bylaw restricting in the future to consider for the town, to take a look at town meeting.
Oh, I think definitely
I'm not prepared to do
door.
it just yet, but I will say, if this continues, as Doug says, through 3 years, let me tell you, we can't be going through this for 3 years. I think we need to have well users as well as the town and everyone conserving water. That's my feeling on it. So I'd say table it for now, but with the option that maybe in the future we'd relook at this again as an option.
Table that part of it, but again, asking people to conserve.
I mean, it's only 70 houses. It's less than half of 1% of the people in the town. So, I don't think it's a huge drain on our water supply, but every little bit helps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
Running a little behind. Moving on to a discussion and review of Sebastian Pizzuto, Eagle Scout Project. How are you this evening? Dave Ball, how you doing, Dave?
Good, how you doing, Marty? Could I just interject a couple of things? I want to just make a couple more comments about the fact that the town is now going to be rated as a Class 7 for flood insurance purposes. I think Nancy, she left, I guess, but Nancy worked very, very hard on this whole process, and it's extremely complex, and I've said this before, but it's almost like having to know the entire tax code. The manual is horrendously thick. It takes a great deal of work every year to make sure you maintain what you've got, let alone getting an increase. Actually, a decrease, because the classes run from 9, which is 5%, on downward. So Scituate's going from a Class 8 to a Class 7, and I wasn't aware of this until tonight, so this is great news. We were a Class 8, we'll now become a Class 7, which means that the homeowner that's paying flood insurance will be paying, or will be getting now a 15% discount instead of a 10. So if somebody's paying a $2,000 premium, they're going to be getting, a good chunk of savings here. So, I just want to congratulate her again. The other thing that I find interesting, if you look at the list of Massachusetts communities that have achieved getting into the CRS program, it's only a handful. It's only 10 or 12 communities in the Commonwealth. And Scituate will be the only one, I guess, that will be at 15%. So it's a big accomplishment and very important. All right, I want to introduce Sebastian Pizzuto. He is the Historical Society's most recent applicant for Eagle Scout. I'm going to let him explain his project, of course, but I can tell you that he, and I think the board has received a copy of his application. It's very impressive. I've seen a lot of these. The Historical Society has been fortunate enough to have 23 of these projects done since 1996. It's really remarkable. And he has put together a very well thought out application, so I'm going to let him go from here.
Hello again, I'm Sebastian Pizzuto. I am a Life Scout in Troop 9 Weymouth. I have been a resident of Hummerock for as long as I can remember.
We're glad you still have your memory.
I would like to place historical signage that commemorates the Portland Gale, as well as the life-saving station down in Hummerock, as well as install a new flagpole down at the fire station as well.
Nice.
Great idea.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
Sebastian has talked to the fire chief, and he has given his support, as I understand. Sebastian and I met with Christine Brown. I don't know if she's here tonight. She's the owner of Humming Rock Gifts. She is a well-known Hummerock resident, and I thought it was important that we had her on board with this because she knows the area as well as anybody down there, and she is very enthusiastic about this as well. I've always wanted to have some kind of a marker up at the bottom of Fourth Cliff where the old U.S. Life Saving Station was located. It was built in 1879 and burned down in 1915. And it would be nice to have it up there, but it's the location where the town puts all of the rock back on the beaches after a storm. There's just no way you can do it there. One other comment I'd like to make is that one of the original life-saving surfmen was William Murphy, and he was on duty during the storm in 1898. So what I'm trying to give you guys is a connection between the fire department and the life-saving service. He hung out after he retired from the life-saving service at the fire station in Scituate, played cribbage with the firemen down there every day. So there is a connection there as well. So I think it makes total sense to have it at the fire station in Hummerock.
Sounds
Mr.
great.
Chairman?
Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
ask, Sebastian, can I see what you designed? Because I didn't get a copy of that.
Yes, I have.
I just would love to see it.
I have extra copies, don't worry.
Oh, great.
I don't see it on here, dude.
Thank you. Oh, it's great.
When do you think you get started on it?
I was hoping to start it in the spring of next year or this year. I'm not exactly sure of a date that I would be able to get started on it, but I am planning out as much as I can right now.
And when do you turn 18? Because that's your deadline, right?
Yes. I turn 18 May 26th of
Of?
2018.
Oh,
That's a nice, that's one of the first questions I asked him. When
prepared.
do you turn 18? Because we've had some kids that are, right up against that threshold.
For
But
you.
he's got the time. He's
Yeah.
got a couple of years.
That sounds great.
I just have one question. Of all the scouts, how many scouts become Eagle Scouts by percentage? 1%, 2%?
It depends on the troop. It's like overall, it's like 2% of all scouts.
Very small.
Yes.
Or as much as someone behind you said, maybe 5%, but still small. That's wonderful. Wonderful achievement. Parents must be very proud.
All right, do we need a motion, or do you need, from us?
I don't think so.
That's a great,
I think it'd be
great
good to
thing.
have a motion to accept the proposal.
Move to accept the proposal made here today, do the work down in Hummerock for Eagle Scout project.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Dennehy. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good luck, and thank you.
Ashton, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great project.
Next, we have a discussion and vote of an outdoor entertainment permit. Judith Duffy, 271 Central Avenue. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to be doing, so.
Just tell us a little bit about what you're going to be having going on, and,
Okay, we're in Hummerock, we're on Central Ave.
yep,
And this is my daughter. And she got married.
In April in Tennessee, because my husband's family's from here. But I wanted to do something for my family here who couldn't make it.
oh, nice.
Congratulations.
So we did decide to do it after Labor Day. So that way there, most people are gone and it won't be so crowded down there, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we have talked to all the neighbors.
Okay,
And actually, I think 4 of our abutters have actually given us their houses and their parking. So we
Nice.
don't need any parking.
Central Ave.
right.
So we don't need to request a parking.
Music? of
Yes, we're going to have a DJ.
DJ, okay. It's 4 PM to 10 PM, right?
On a Saturday night.
Yeah, that's nice.
Motion?
Yeah, motion.
I'll move to grant an outdoor entertainment permit to Judith Duffy for an upcoming private event with a DJ on September 10th, 2016 at 271 Central Ave, Hummerock, from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Enjoy.
Congratulations.
Fun. Congratulations. Next, we have a discussion and vote of the mooring rules and regulations. Sections of authority through B9. Stephen Moan and Brian Cronin. Stephen's the harbor mess, and Brian is still the chair of waterways at the moment. Hello. How are you guys tonight?
We're here this evening to see if you would adopt the new regulations that we've worked in numerous open meetings at the Maritime Center for the past several months.
Right.
It's not the complete mooring rules and regulations, we're doing it in sections.
Right, so section B, was it B9?
Yeah, it goes from authority through section B9.
Right, okay.
So what section is this, then?
Where are you?
I'm on the mooring rules.
All right,
Is this just like
Go
the
to the-
preamble, or is
The
this just
first
like...
page,
Yep.
it says mooring rules and regulations, waterways bylaws, recommended waterways, July 14th to the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
Authority,
That's page 1, right?
page 1.
Okay, so we're starting with page 1, and obviously the first 3 pages, then?
Correct.
Steve?
So it's only the authority
And
that's being evaluated right now?
This is, it's authority, and then you follow down through the 3 pages,
Yep.
and there's, it's italicized and in bold, the changes. A lot of it was in place. The first section under authority, I took right from Mass General Law, and so that if anybody felt that they were aggrieved by a harbor master, they knew where to go, so that we didn't end up, going to court or somewhere else. Waterways looked at that, and there was some discussion, and they wanted to have a stop-off with Waterways, and then the Town Administrator's Office and the Board of Selectmen as well. That is basically under the authority section.
Go ahead.
I just had a couple of quick questions. I mean, we haven't had this very long, so it's very difficult. But I'm going from B, mooring assignment method, down where it says, if an applicant refuses a mooring in the mooring checked-off area, application is subsequent time, the applicant will be removed from the wait list. And it says an application has 2 opportunities to claim a mooring. Okay. But then if you go to number 7, it says, if an applicant on a waiting list refuses a mooring in the mooring area checked off on the application offered by the harbor master, the applicant remains prioritized on the list based on the initial date of application. It doesn't like say a second time there. And then it says, if the applicant refuses a mooring in the mooring area checked off on the application a subsequent time. So it actually does say it underneath that. It's just a little confusing is all I'm saying.
There's 2 sections there.
Okay.
What was happening was, we have about 750 people on the mooring wait list.
Right.
And we have children, infants, 4-year-olds.
That are on that?
That are on the wait list. They can't have a mooring until they're 18, according to the rules and regulations.
Right.
It takes between 6 and 10 years to get there.
Gotcha.
So if you go on the wait list at 1, I'm calling you when you're 10, you still can't have one. You really can't have one until you're 18, until you're 18.
So what happens to that particular person?
They stay at the top of the wait list.
As was.
For one more time?
No, until they're 18.
Until they're 18.
And then once they're 18, they have 2.
They have 2 swings at the
So you
bat.
can continue to pass them by?
Yes. So what I wanted to do was make it so that I'm not calling a bunch of 1-year-olds or 10-year-olds for moorings that they can't have, and promote boater safety. We put in, individuals must be at least 16 years of age to be added to the mooring wait list.
Okay.
All right? Or if you take a safe boating class, you can go on the wait list at 12.
Oh, 12, okay, I thought it was 14, okay.
Is that common in other harbors, Stephen? It seems reasonable to me, but I'm just curious. It makes sense not to get a mooring at birth. I mean, that just clogs up
Well,
things.
it's the wait list, because the town bylaw now, or the town mooring rules and regulations clearly states that you have to be 18
Right, I get that.
to get a mooring.
So I just want to make a few comments. I just want to say thanks. It's never easy writing regulations, okay?
I'm not a lawyer.
Laws, the regulations, and the thing is, when you write them, you don't change them too often, because you try to get them as basic as simple so that everybody can understand them. That's part of the problem with a lot of things, and one of the problems could be that, you're dealing with rules or regs that were established, or bylaws, whatever you want to call them, in the past, and sometimes you try to work from within them, and that creates a problem because they're flawed to begin with, and sometimes it's easier to just toss it all out, start anew, because you got to set your priorities as to what you're looking for. I have to say, I did take a look at this. I made a lot of changes, a lot of corrections, which from my first review, I only got the material yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to look at it until today. So, I mean, I have to tell you, I think you got to take a look at some things. The fact that we're having 12-year-olds and 16-year-olds, then 18-year-olds, doesn't make any sense to me. Why would a 12-year-old should get on the list for mooring? First of all, they can't contract. They can't be paying anything. It's probably an avenue that a family's saying, look, I can put this kid on, this kid on, this kid on. I'm not saying everybody does that, but I'm assuming
It
maybe...
happens. It does happen.
Okay? So why bother having a 12-year-old? Because you know 12-year-old can't get a mooring. I would say exclude it. 16, exclude it. If they're 18 and they can get it, they can get it. Exception being if they're looking to become a commercial fisherman. That I can understand, because I assume there's some separate bylaws that are going to be dealing with it. I just don't know why you're dealing with 12-year-olds and 16-year-olds. That I circled, because I was like, that should be dealt with.
So they
Didn't make
shouldn't
sense.
even be allowed to be on the wait list?
I don't think they should be. And then I was trying to figure out, what's the goal here? It's a wait list.
Correct.
I went through the definitions. I said, okay, you got 4 definitions. Then I went through this, and I said, okay, maybe you should define what is a wait list. It's a list of people who have applied who do not get a mooring. Okay? And then the other thing is a date of initial application. I think you need to define it, because you keep going back to the date of initial application saying, you know what, we're going to base this, you stay on the list based on your date of initial application. Because that goes back to your first initial application. All subsequent renewals are irrelevant as far as your ranking on that list. I think you need to define that so that people understand what the significance of date of initial application is. And I did take a look at, under your authority, with all due respect, you've got too many people involved in this. So if somebody objects to Steve, the harbor master, then it needs to go to the next step. My feeling on that would be, I would think it would be waterways. I see the town administrators involved, and the Board of Selectmen's involved. We're not here to micromanage. We're here to make sure that things are adhered to by the bylaws and the rules. If it turns out that the waterways is not adhering to it, they're not adhering to your advice, you know, we've dealt with that with other commissions like COMCOM, CPC, zoning, other commissions that we say, okay, if these people are not going to adhere to the bylaws and are not going to adhere to what's going on, then they're not reappointed. That's our mechanism. I think there's a lot of going on here. I mean, I don't think the town administrator should be involved in such a minor issue if somebody's mooring. I mean, her time is so valuable. In the Board of Selectmen, they're going to come up here and we're going to have this hearing on a mooring like we had before. To me, that's important to take a look at and say, okay, let's figure it out. Because if they get appealed from you, obviously your decision needs to be respected. And if it's not you, it's the future harbor masters. But likewise, if a commission may be skewed, harbor master could be skewed at some point in the past or in the future, we need to have that balance there.
That's why I took it, just that one section. I initially just took Chapter 91, Section 10A, I copied and pasted it in, and
But I think that the thing with these, it's a good idea to say it, but I think people need to identify, here's your mechanism. The other thing I went through was under general, I was looking at the applicant, the application process, because to me, it has to be crystal clear. When I'm applying for an application, I have to submit it in a timely fashion. It has to be submitted between these 2 blocks, whether it's the 15th of May, I guess, and September 15th, is that, if I'm reading this correctly?
Yeah.
And then it looks like between the 15th or 16th of September and the 30th of September, you, the harbor master, I deleted the harbor master's office, it's harbor master, your office is encompassed within that. Harbor master then notifies people whether or not they've submitted their application, or from the list, I guess. Is that how it goes?
No, what it was with that section, you're supposed to come in and renew, and the dates were from August 1st until December 31st, and then into January.
Too far. Yep.
I thought it was too much.
Yep.
And then there was some discussion whether we should have it while we're open and people are voting.
Makes sense.
Which made more sense. There was...
And I see nothing wrong with that. What I'm running into is now your obligation, once you're going to tell them that they...
What it is if you forget to come in and sign, then I have to contact you.
You've got 15 days to do it, from the 16th to the 30th.
Correct.
The question I have there is, reading through this, is how are you going to contact them? The way it's set up, it says, well, you know, are you going to call them? Are you going to email them? Are you going to send them a letter? What you need to do in this is put the onus on them. They need to either give you an application with a legal and current residential address, or email address, or telephone number, if that's what you want. But I don't think you should be going down all 3 of these, or any one. Stick to one and tell people your obligation. If you do not provide it, you're off the list. Because otherwise, you're going to be, did I do this, did I do that? You don't need to be doing all that legwork. They need to provide it to you. And then the second period, which was, I guess, another 31 days after that, till October 31st, you're giving them an opportunity for to be reinstated, providing they pay an additional $50 late fee.
Yeah, that was
And I get that, but I think when I went through this, I'm not kidding you, I wrote it all up. I'm just sitting here going, you really need to rewrite these, and that's not to be insulting. I'm just saying, because the problem, I went through this saying, what if I represented somebody who said, hey, I got bumped? You're going to be having a lot more issues with people, I think.
No,
So I just think I'd like to take a look at this. I would love to give you folks my 2 cents on it. You can take it for what it's worth, but at least it might help you a little bit, and then bring it back again, at least to the next meeting or whenever you guys are meeting. You guys meet every, once a month?
Once a month.
once a month.
So a lot of the changes, Stephen came to the waterways with some proposed changes. Waterways had a number of working group meetings, and we had close to 80 people at a couple meetings, which usually if you can get 5 people to show up in a waterways, other than the...
You're doing pretty well.
You're doing pretty well. And a lot of we did get a lot of public input, and that's where a lot of the things came from. I think Stephen will tell you that we changed some things from what he first proposed. And I think some of them were good, it was good input. But, so I think some of your comments kind of are things we took from really, it was public input, and we had it was probably 10 people on a working group who kind of worked with the public to come to where we are today.
And I'm not saying and I'm not trying, the 12 and the 16-year-olds, I don't see what the benefit of that is at all, because there's nothing else unless you're going to have a parent co-sign for recreation. There's no kid who can sign up for themselves here in the town of Scituate. So why are we doing it with boating? That doesn't make any sense. I would probably say I disagree with if anybody says, the working group says you should.
No, I was just trying to get it so that I didn't have 1-year-olds on there.
What I'm looking at here, though, is I'm saying, like with Marty saying about the Section 7 being somewhat in disagreement with Section 3, what I did there was I said, you've already got Section 3. If it's spelled out there, then all you need to do is say, you don't need to... Well, Section 3, the way I start out, with the exception of paragraph 7 below, then you go through it, because you created your exception. Section 7 deals with, well, the aging and the grouping and the birthday. Basically, somebody who applies, they can get it by the 18th birthday, if that's what you want. I just think it could be tweaked a little bit. I think you're going to have a nightmare with these right now, and I'm not trying to scare you off. I'm just saying I'm happy to work with you and somebody and the rest of the board, their 2 cents. But this is going to be a mess. I'm just telling you. If you think it's bad now, I can only see this as being a mess. You don't want to be making phone calls and emails, and you as a board want to say, you the applicant, what is the means of communicating? Because if you don't give me an accurate, true communication level of address or email, then you're off. Why do you need to do that legwork?
John, that sounds real good, but it's easier said than done. Sit in a couple of those meetings with 80 people, and they're gonna, you think we had a couple of people come before us because they were dropped off the list? There's gonna be a lot more. I think these guys in the Waterways group would agree. It's just, it takes the onus off Steve. He can just shoot an email out to those people that didn't re-sign on that time you said, but they were traveling, they were sick, they were caring for them. There'll be a lot of people that are gonna slip through. And if you're willing to defend that, that's great, but it's very ambitious, and it would make his job a lot easier, that's for sure.
I just want to make sure that the commission and the harbor master have regulations that they can say, these are them, they're simple to read, they're not difficult to understand, and your application is significant, just like you're applying for a loan, or applying for a car, or a mortgage, or whatever. You put down truthful information. It's not one of these, just fill it out and hand it in, because it's significant to get your mooring, to make sure that you're on the list. That, to me, I think is important. Otherwise, you're going to be running around trying to track down everybody, spending a lot of time, and I don't think commission members want to be going through that either. I mean, it's a very basic application. Here it is.
Make their job. Don't take this the wrong way, but do you really know what they're goal was.
No, I don't. That's why I'm saying, what is the goal that you're looking for?
To move the list. There are people that have been on the list for, you guys know better than years and years and years, to move it along.
I can move this list.
So they don't have to keep renewing for 10 and 15 years.
I agree. There shouldn't be a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old applying. They should be off the list, period. You have to be an age of majority, of 18 or older, to be able to apply. That's for anything.
Yeah, but you've got to keep those you've got to grandfather them in, right? If they're on the list today, I mean, how can you?
So that one-year-old that's now 11,
All of a sudden, yeah.
I mean, they've been on for 10 years.
I'll tell you right now, I'd go to
Moving
town
forward.
council and I'd say, I want to make sure, because right now, I don't see how anything that a child has, they have to have a parent sign for it. To me, they can't just say, I'm putting my one-year-old on. That's ridiculous. We know what's going on there. I know they don't do that, I assume.
So
Or maybe they
John-
did, then that's ridiculous.
John,
That's why it went in there.
If we give a 15-year-old a mooring, okay, and he puts a Zodiac on it, he doesn't want to pay, he doesn't have to because he's a minor.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying contractually, you could run into a situation because they're not aged to contract.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying, knock them off. And as far as, that's why I'm saying, put the onus on the applicant, because if the applicant doesn't give you their preferred means of communication, then why should you be running around in circles trying to find them? You know?
I think it does say in there,
Address that
to contact by the preferred means of communication.
And I think that's fine, because initially I thought it was email and then maybe certified letter or something, but...
I think I think the board is very conscious of burdening the harbor master with administrative, paperwork and sending registered letters. I think was a suggestion from the town administrator. And we said, well, this is a courtesy that we're trying to send out to the people on the waiting list if they have forgotten. So we said email or preferred method of contact, just to be, so if they did not have an email address, then it was.
And I think that's fine, providing there's bold. Failure to do so, you do so at your own peril, your own responsibility, because then it's on them. And if they don't give you the accurate, information, then, and you don't get it in time, then you know what, you can say, here's your application, read down here. You've got to provide the information.
I believe somewhere maybe down farther in the verbiage, it says that, it's up to the applicant to provide, the
Correct information.
and updated information. If it changes, it's up to them to.
And I think the other thing that you're looking at with, I think it makes sense, you're trying to move the list where, it sounded to me from reading this, is that some people were saying, I'm on the list, but I want that mooring, and I'm going to wait. If it takes me 20 years.
That's what they're
and
doing.
I keep getting all these other options, and I'm going to wait.
Can
and
you
I keep
define the
doing that.
categories too then? Because that's what's confusing to me.
They are. The physical locations is what they're.
Yeah, and I
What
think
I'm
that
trying to
makes
do
sense.
is break up the locations so that there's an inner harbor, outer harbor.
Oh, okay.
So you'll check a box, or first available. So if I call you and you just want the inner harbor, I'm not going to call you for anything on the outer harbor. Just going to call you in the inner harbor. But you're
And is
going to
that
have
segmented by boat length, in a way?
It's basically, there's,
Is there a map?
huh?
Do you have a map? Inner harbor, outer harbor? I was going to say, because you have a
Yeah,
map,
we're
it's
gonna-
easy.
we're
That's
gonna have-
defined by the map, boom, this is where
We're
you
going to have a
apply for
map,
it.
because when I
makes it
presented
easier.
it to Waterways, we were going to break up the rivers as well into 3 sections. The C Street Bridge to the
Julian Street.
to Julian Street Bridge, from the Julian Street Bridge to Wrexham Beach, and so somebody down at Wrexham Beach or that area doesn't have to wait 12 years to get a mooring that nobody wants down there.
Right.
But he wants it tomorrow.
Right, that makes sense.
And we'll do it, that in the North River, so it, right at where the train tracks were, and then to the 3A Bridge to the Norwell line. Those are 3 sections. And they're pretty defined, and the Mill Wharf is kind of the Mason-Dixon line for inner harbor, outer harbor. But we have people that we call, and that I was told by my assistant harbor master, he's been calling for years. And they're number 1, number 2, number 3, and they just wait on the list. And they wait on the list, and we have to call them, we have to wait for them to respond, wait for them to decide, and then
You've
they
lost
come
all that
back
time.
to us, and they say, yeah, I don't really want it this year. And then
See, one of the thoughts I had
Regulations
was,
today, they stay number one on the wait list, and they can stay number one for an eternity.
here's the thing that I thought that should be in the bylaws, which I didn't have time to write, which would be in section 3, basically, your second refusal means that you no longer are able
just
to
off the
maintain
list.
your date of initial application, that you are going to the bottom as if
No,
you're
we're just dropping you off completely. You're not,
Period.
if you
That's
don't
fine.
want, you've passed twice, you really don't want one.
Right.
Come back and see us when you want one.
Because that was one of the questions I had, was are you trying to bump them to the bottom of the list, or are
No,
you
I'm trying to
take
get,
them off
just
together?
like, if you want to come back and reapply, that's fine, but
And was the commission in
Keith, did-
agreement with that piece?
Yes, yeah,
Two tries, 2 years in a row.
The section.
it doesn't even have to be 2 years in a row, because
Okay.
we may not have a mooring the next year. It's just 2 tries.
Two tries,
two
okay.
offers, yeah.
So it could be this year, it could be next year, or the year after, or 5 years later.
Right.
It's 2 tries.
Keith, just name and address if you would.
Keith Walton, Country Way. Just a couple of quick things. Stephen just explained part of that, but when there's 4 or 5 people at the top of the waiting list, they each have like a week or 10 days or whatever the regulation is to respond. So you call the first person, you wait 10 days, and they say no.
Right.
Then you get to the second person, and they say no. And like you said, there's 5 or 6 names.
I'm into
10 names
September.
at the top that have been there for the
It's
whole
over.
time.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is, though, I have to say, we have like close to 50 moorings that have not been given out. Because for whatever reason, it's been decided that they're not going to be given out until we get through some of this stuff. That's between $15,000 and $20,000 wherever it's sitting on a desk somewhere.
We tried last year giving out moorings, and we were trying and trying and trying. And that's why I wanted the section at least about, you can't stay number one on the list. I mean, if we got that passed, then we could start at least calling people and start, so I'm not calling the same people for the next 3 or 4 years.
But I think once that person gets past their second chance, they should be gone off the list.
They will
period.
be off the list, but I can't do that today because it
Right.
says you remain prioritized on the list based on your date.
When is your next meeting?
September 7th. The first Wednesday. I believe it's the first Wednesday.
And our meeting is the 6th, right?
Yep.
Are there really 50 ones that...
There's probably, there could be 40 or 50 moorings that are out there that are available. And we tried...
For this document before you start...
No, we tried last year to start assigning moorings, and it just didn't work. We had one person over the summer take
What?
one,
Season's over. We're not gonna-
Yeah, no, we know.
You just can't, you can't
But they
get
wanna
to
get a
them.
place for this next
You
list.
call them, and you're calling and tripping over the same people, year after year after year.
Now,
And that's why I was trying to get this
Done. So
Done.
you get things.
Yeah.
John, this is maybe a question for you. If I'm one of those people, number one on the list, and I keep saying no because I wanted the prime spot, and we change the regs, do I
don't get
have a
grandfathered.
legal standing?
No, the regs are changed, they're going to be adopted. You submit your new application for renewal based upon the regs, and they have to,
So everybody
when they
will have
do,
to
everybody will have to get the new regs and give them notice of it. Yeah.
They have to
No, they have
resubmit
to-
every year.
Every year anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're going to add in the different
To reapply.
segments.
So we'll have that on the application.
Yep.
As people have been applying, we're like, just saying, do you want the inner harbor or do you want the outer harbor?
But you must have some people on the list that...
Either one.
They don't care where it
filled out
is.
so long ago that...
They don't even know where they are,
Right.
or what they applied for, or what size
So
boat they have.
therefore, I can keep saying, no, I don't want the South River, I don't want the North River, I want to be... right
But once
where
you
the
say,
dock is.
if you say no to, if you have checked off South River, North River, and Scituate Harbor
Now, right?
now, and once if we adopt this, if I call you for the North River tomorrow, and you say no, and then next year I call you for the South River.
You say no.
And you say no, you're out. Even if you wanted Scituate Harbor, you should have come in and fixed your application.
Correct. Right. Keith, you have something to add?
Yeah, I just have to respectfully say, I know the system's broken, and it's not ideal, and it's been broken for a long time, but we've never had 50 moorings to give out.
You had 50 moorings when I got here. I didn't turn them in this year.
Can I ask a question? How many do we reserve for transient boaters that come in
We
and
don't-
out of the harbor?
We don't have any reserve for transient boaters.
Why don't we?
So they currently by the launch services, either the boat club, the yacht club, or a private launch service. And they use their customers or their members' moorings.
That happen to be away or something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And how many are available through those clubs? A fair amount?
A lot, yeah. I don't, and just talking to the launch people, I don't think there's ever a time they've had to turn somebody away who came into the harbor. You can't bring a footer, and there's just no place for it except for the town pier, but it's...
I know, but
they're pretty,
cruising.
within reason, 30,
This is a
40.
great cruising destination, so...
It is, we're.
So that's not my understanding, I had a long conversation with the former harbor master that we would have transient moorings and transient floats available fees of which would come to the town of Scituate. So that's been a change. That's been a change in the last few years.
There is, the town marina has a number of...
Yeah, we have transient
Yeah.
slips that
Yeah.
we rent out. If somebody leaves their slip, they have to notify me, and
Again, that's not my understanding. When the new slips went in, when we put them over by the Maritime Center, a finite number of those were supposed to be reserved slips
But
for
not
transient mooring, for transient boaters, just for the reason Maura said, and also some moorings. And it was my understanding, maybe not since Mark had left or before, but that was something that was implemented in 2010 or 2011 when we started being able to take credit cards. Because we would never take credit cards before that. So that's something we can do.
Yeah, but they're no moorings.
Moorings.
So I think...
there's no moorings, and there's no set transient slips.
So somebody can have a mooring and they can make money off it?
I'm not blaming...
So we can revisit that at a later time.
Well, answer the question. So if someone has a mooring, they can rent it out and make money on their mooring?
You can't rent, from what I have been told by everybody, and I've tried to find the law where it says you can't rent.
It says in the bylaws that you cannot rent
In the bylaws it says it, but I've been told, I asked why, and I was told that the Army Corps doesn't allow it, and I can't find where they say they don't allow moorings to be rented to transients.
To Tony's point, I have a mooring, and I go away for the weekend, and John's coming in from Newport. I can't rent it to John, but if I'm one of Keith or Franny's customers, and I say, hey guys, I'm going to, away for the weekend, John comes in, they can rent my mooring to John. Is that what?
That's how...
They use their...
And
they don't rent it,
service.
they provide a lunch service, is the way it was explained to me.
I know how it works. I want these guys to realize.
Which is why the town needs its own.
I was just going to say, town should have its own.
Yeah.
And
We
that,
have people coming
my
in, I don't know
question,
why, this is not your ability, this is beyond the scope of
Yeah.
what we're talking about tonight. That's another issue, but I will say the town should. I thought we did have it.
yes,
Rick, I
that
wish
was
Rick
my
were here
understanding.
because
I'm learning some
that's what I
stuff
thought.
tonight because
Let's get back to
yeah.
the thing here. I would ask this.
No, it's not you. It was before.
What
you
I would
came
like to see is postpone this until your next meeting. I'd like to have these, if you could forward these to me, I'd be happy to give you my input, just to kind of expound on it, because I'm trying to look at this with an eye of saying, I'm going to be applying and what could go wrong. And you know what, take it back and see what your guys' thoughts are. Maybe it can clarify some things. Maybe you guys are going to say, forget it. I'm just only trying to help it out here. I'm not trying to put my fingerprint on it and saying, well, this is the way I'm trying to get a sense of what you're trying to accomplish. I think I understand it. You want to get rid of the list. Absolutely makes sense.
I want to assign moorings
In
to
other words,
people
move
who
the
want
list. I say get rid of it, move the list. I mean,
That's
get
what
rid
I
of it.
wanna do.
I mean,
I
the
just
people
wanna
who are at
get
the top
people moorings.
heavy people. I get that. It makes sense. You want to move it along so you can make it more efficient. And I'm just only looking at it saying, how is it going to make it easier for you? And if it means that there are people who are going to be upset, they're going to be upset based upon their failure to do what they're supposed to do based on these. That's it. It's not going to be, well, you didn't, I was there and I gave my money, or somebody said I was on the list. No, it's going to be crystal clear, I think, is what you want. Right now, I'd have to tell you it's murky, the way I'm reading it. That's all.
Do you want just this section, or do you want the whole mooring document?
Start with the section.
Send me the section. All right, I'll be happy to.
All 50 pages?
Keith, do you have something to add?
How many pages is it?
We haven't even got to this in our mooring discussions yet, but it's written right in the regulations, no mooring may be rented for any period of time.
Okay.
So like somebody said, they're providing a service, but if the transient comes in and they have a dinghy and they don't need the launch service, they still get paid the $40 a night, whatever it is. So it's semantics is what they're doing. So this is one of the other things that really has to be changed. And what Patricia's saying, she wants the town to rent them. Number one, that's liability that I don't know if the town wants. And number two, this is going to have to change because it says right in here, you can't rent them more.
Town has liability anyways,
The town-
having this whole thing. It's just, the reality here is, there
Town
are
owns
fees
the
to be
slips.
made here, and
We own
it's
the
a
ball and
service that
chain,
we
we
can
own the
provide to
mooring.
people. That I would think you'd have. I
Not
think you'd have
rocket
moorings that the
science.
town be able to say, we have this
says
whole
town moorings?
harbor,
Yeah,
I have a
we can
boat.
do it, and we should be doing it.
It's a fee that the Waterways Commission's going to be able to generate.
I just have one question that I wanted to ask in the beginning. So, I'm number one on the list, you tell me I'm out
You're number
there.
one. We
Okay.
call you up.
Right, and I put a 22-foot boat out on this thing. All of a sudden, by the end of the season, that 22-foot boat just grew to 38 feet. But yet you've placed me based upon a size. What is, what,
All right.
how do you control that?
Well, first, you mean you've brought...
I couldn't afford that
You brought
boat, I'm
another
just
boat
saying.
in and didn't tell us?
No, I bought a different boat, I sold that boat, I still have my mooring. How do you control that?
You're supposed to come to me first.
Okay.
And then
Before I buy my
work
boat?
with one of the mooring installers to make sure that your boat is going to fit in the hole that we assigned you. If
Okay.
it doesn't, then you have to go back on the wait list,
Okay.
because we can't move the 3 moorings around you, because if I move those 3, then I got to move the 6.
Okay.
And it just goes on and on and on.
All right, so where on the wait list do you go at that point?
You start at back of the line.
Really?
In the like the 35 to 30 to 40-foot line.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Right.
different lines.
There's different
lists,
categories.
you know, because if you went on for a 22-foot boat, 20 to 25 or something like that, then that's the list you're on. You're number one on that list, but you're not number one on the 35 to 40.
Wow, okay.
Well,
I'm glad you only
there's a
brought
lot.
this much in.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see the levels. I see what you're saying.
Wow,
So,
okay.
So don't get upset. I'm just saying.
No.
I just don't want you guys to have a worse nightmare later on. And I know time is of the essence because you're trying to get this thing done, but my only suggestion is I want you to get it done right. And I'd only ask indulge me, or the board at least,
Yeah, so it's really not the
another
spirit, it's just
one more
procedural that you're
month,
trying to...
that's all.
So, John, you'll be willing to work on the language? We can look
Yeah,
at it and
I'll
then
shoot
get it
this
to them
back
for
to
the
you
meeting?
by the end of the week, if not tomorrow, Thursday, if you shoot it over to me.
Willing to come to the next...
Yeah, I'll go to the next Water Maze meeting. Sure, I'll be happy to.
Well, do we have to vote on the final before we give it to them? Like at our meeting and then give it to them?
Well-
He was saying just to go take the abuse from all the 80 people that are going to...
Oh, I'll be happy to. Believe me, I take a lot of abuse.
No, my question was seriously.
They've been very good meetings, and I just think, you know, and now obviously you're coming at it from a different kind of angle and a fresh eye, so.
I just didn't want to, I was trying to take the existing document and just make some
We'll use John's legal
slight
expertise.
changes.
Well, no, I'll just use my insight, not legal expertise, just
I
to,
was kind of hoping it was going to go a lot, you know,
Can we put
it was
this on
going to
the
be done in
agenda
June.
for 2 weeks from now?
The Waterways isn't meeting till September 7th, so you
Would have to
couldn't
be the
hear it
meeting
until
on the
the
6th.
20th.
all right?
Second?
Oh,
They're meeting on the 7th.
I was going to say, if John was able to work his magic on that, we look at it at our next meeting.
Well, they have to look at
They're
it.
They gotta
not
look at it first. They should go back and take a look at it before,
That's, okay,
and they can
perfect.
say whatever they want. and
Wonderful.
then-
So you can do that soon then?
Well, I want to get it sooner than later, otherwise,
I'll send it to you tonight.
perfect. I'll be waiting for it.
Okay, so we're just going to,
An email address or?
Yeah.
so
It's all right, I
we'll go on
can
our
take
next
care of
meeting,
it.
then, Michelle.
And you know what? Shoot that and give me an email, yours also, so then I'll shoot it back to the both of you, and whoever
I'll just
else, I
send
don't
it
care.
to
So people can take a
Just,
look
if you
at it.
send it to me now, I can send it to both of them.
Thank you for your time.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a discussion and vote on the sewer rates for 2016 to 2017. Kevin Cafferty. How are you, Kevin?
Good evening. Great, hate to be talking about a sewer rate increase, but we're getting there. The Board of Selectmen last voted to increase the sewer rates in 2013, effective for July 1st, by 2%. Since that time, the sewer department has had to address numerous equipment and system failures, deferred maintenance at the wastewater treatment plant and at the pump stations, resulting in special town meeting increasing the sewer enterprise operating budget of $397 in FY15 and $315 in FY16. The Sewer Division was also especially hard hit in 2015 by electricity rates, which caused electricity costs to increase significantly. Electricity costs in 2014 were $211,286, and by FY16 they increased by 21% to $294,575, which is an $83,000 increase. The sewer users rate revenue only increased by $42,478 during that same period. The reason that the enterprise fund had a revenue deficit is due to the prepayments of the betterments, predominantly those from the Squashka Pond expansion. Prepaid betterments generated $861,296 in revenue for FY14, $433 for FY15, and $253 for FY16. The FY17 operating budget required the use of $493,414 in retained earnings after the original request was reduced by $239,359, which brought the remaining retained earning balance down to an unacceptable level of $162,559.
Did the electric bill go up because of more use or because the rates went up?
For two reasons, if I may interject. The rates did go up significantly. They went up about 20%, and also in fiscal 15, it was even higher. It was almost $390,000 because of the storms. The plant was running 24/7 to process all that water. That's why we didn't use that as a comparison year. So the rates did go up, and we have seen some efficiencies from the repairs that have been done.
So it went up because of the rates? But we make all our own
I was going to say,
electricity from the...
Yeah, for 100% renewable energy.
Right, so...
But we still have to pay National Grid.
So, but this amount is not just the piece we pay National Grid, right? This is the whole...
This is the total amount that the sewer enterprise has to pay to National Grid for their electricity.
And then the credit comes back...
Into the revolving funds for wind turbine and the solar array. So...
Continue on.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we read it. You don't have to...
Yeah, I mean, our infrastructure, there's a lot of things that have to be done there.
We've been making a lot of improvements. One of the big repair jobs or expansion was in 2000, 2001. Some of the equipment that was redone at that time had a lifespan of 15 years, particularly like the clarifiers. We've been picking off the clarifiers one at a time through the capital budget plan. We've been doing it very aggressively, and I think we've been doing it pretty well. We've also gone after our main aeration tank 4, which a lot of you have been out there for the to see it up and running. We're diving into our other aeration tanks now as we get more equipment online. We just got the second clarifier online probably about a week and a half ago, where we had it drained. We pulled everything out. We replaced the main bearing, we replaced the motor and everything else inside, and it worked out pretty well so far.
And I think in the packet that was provided, it listed a lot of the repairs that have been done that they cited, and those were just the ones that were included in the fiscal 17 budget request. As is evidenced by this, there is a significant number of things that were not repaired or the maintenance was deferred. And as the board has seen through their tours, you have a pump station that has built for 3 pumps, only ever had 2 pumps. 1 pump fails and the last pump is on its last legs. It requires immediate maintenance, and that's why there's been a lot of this influx of retained earnings at special town meetings into the operational budget, which normally wouldn't occur. You set the budget unless you have an emergency. So there's been a need to address that. On the debt side, which we really didn't provide you that much information, the capital plan has about $3.7 million in additional projects that are on there besides any type of a sewer expansion. So that's going to add into our debt service going forward. We also have as Kevin alluded to, the copper issue that we have to deal with. We're currently working with the capital project that was approved in April to study what our options are for copper reduction for our NEPD's permit. And then in fiscal 18, there will be a capital project brought forward for the best option to address that. So those are some of the things that are on the horizon.
So does the 10% increase make it flush? Does
No.
it make it?
No.
So what's it,
It-
is there like a financial plan or something you have for us?
It would require a far greater increase than the 10% to make it flush for this one given year. What we didn't want to do is ask you for a large increase like we've seen in the water enterprise without there being a project to tie it to. This will increase the revenues about $100,000 a year for the 10% increase in the sewer usage and about $40,000 a year for the sewer septic disposal fee increase. Keeping in mind that we put in over $400,000, $500,000 in retained earnings. So that's not closing that gap. But that list of accomplishments and what you asked me before, Tony, about the electricity, we have seen some economies being realized. The efficiency from being able to run pumps on variable frequency drives for the capital projects and the repairs has allowed us to start controlling those electricity costs. That's a huge driver. If we can bring those costs under control, that helps us. Also, we're putting a lot of money into repair and maintenance. Once we bring this deferred maintenance schedule back online, which they're doing through the capital plan and through a very aggressive deferred maintenance plan, that will not need to be included in the budget going forward. So in reference to your question, no, there isn't a long-term plan going forward for increasing the rates because we need to see how effective we are in bringing these repairs in and how it impacts us positively on our fixed costs such as electricity. You're giving me the look like I danced around the question and I'm sorry.
Yes, you didn't answer anything I asked. So is there a financial plan that says 10% is, here's what our costs are expected to be, here's what our revenue is going to be, and here's how we're going to get where we want to be? You know, because we raised the water rates, Sean, what, 5% for 10 years or something like that? You know, and I can't speak for everyone, but I don't think anyone's really up for increasing rates to anyone in town right now, you know, for anything. But I know Sean and I visited the treatment plant, and we know that it is in dire strait for repair work on some of the equipment. I don't know what clarifiers you're talking about, but there
Big
was...
circular things that's been
so
around.
that was all messed up. But we'd like to see some sort of thing, some sort of model that says, here's what's going to happen over this amount of time, and estimates of what the maintenance would be high or be a low side of it to see where it's going to be. I mean, obviously, there's not a lot of retained earnings to cover any losses.
Correct.
In the future. I'd also like to understand the prepayments of these betterments, where we're capturing them as revenue, but not the debt side of it.
Correct. And so in response to your first question, as for a long-term plan going forward, I don't have a long-term plan for you. Kevin and I are formulating that with Tricia now to look at, we've talked about the fact that we have, that the sewer rates were not sufficient to support operations. What we have to really drill down on is how much more do we have to put into this for the maintenance before we're actually at a normal maintenance budget? How much, you know, are we done now? Do we have to keep putting in $400,000 a year, or have we addressed most of it? That is something that has to be clarified.
On the one trip I went with Tony, I took away, there's some capital expenditures to be done. Then you had tanks that couldn't be used, you had, you know, and no fault of anyone's, but it's almost like maintenance will cover some of the arms, you know, you had to have those things fabricated or just take it right offline and rebuild it. I just, you know, what was it, 96 when I first came on the board, is we spent $15 million upgrading the plant, and it almost seems like we, down the road, might have to do something, maybe not as big, but that's what I took from it, Tony. You know, it's been very well maintained, but it just seemed like...
Well, I know you fixed the big one in the back.
Aeration tank 4 is up and running. We've got that up and running right now.
Are you saying you fixed that big one
We had one clarifier that was down when you came in. We fixed that also. That's up and running also.
So those were the two big things that
But just fixed, I mean, not really, you know, it was just
What we did is we took the whole arm out with a crane, pulled it all out, and we had to replace the whole bearing and motor assembly and also the drive and everything else to get it going again. The guys did, we had some welding done on the arms and painted it up and got it back going again. Those clarifiers were put in 2000, and the other ones were rehabbed. I think one was put in and two were put in also along with that. One was already in, and the two were rehabbed at that point, I think, when that work was done in 2000. And what we wound up doing is some of the bearing material and some of the other stuff has a lifespan of 15 years, so we're hitting that. And with some of the pumps and some of the other miscellaneous stuff, it's just reaching its lifespan, and that's what we've been acting on.
So do you,
Sorry.
yeah, may I just ask a question? Do you have a full estimate, a number? I know it's not exact, but an estimate on the amount of repairs, replacements that we're looking at that we need to? You know, if it was $15 million in 1996, are we looking at another 2, another 3, another 4?
We have 3.7 million on our capital plan right now.
Okay.
And that capital plan has become more robust in the last year. It has an actual 5-year plan attached to it, where it's not just, okay, this is what we need this year, and there's a couple of things out in the outer years. It actually looked at what was going on in the plant and in the pump stations and how it has to go forward. One of the big unknowns is the copper. How is that going to impact us, and how much of the capital is that really going to take up the room for? I mean, right now, I think we know we have it in for $1 million. It could be more than that, depending on what comes back from that feasibility study. Do we need to, go through the outfall? Is there some way we can treat it? Do we need to build some type of new structure in between?
Is that feasibility study underway right now?
It's ongoing right now, yes. We have, and we'll come before the board with the options. We have a bunch of different options that we're looking at on what we can do to get our copper level down. That's something that's been floating around for a long time. The EPA lowered the copper level years ago, and I think everybody's aware of that. That's the big unknown that we have in the future.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No.
In response to Sean's point about what you've witnessed down there of all the other things that need to be done, we've been in a reactive mode responding to, I don't want to say emergencies, but situations that are urgent in a manner where you have like only one pump operating station, so that needs to be rectified immediately. A lot of that has now been addressed, the most urgent issues, and we're moving on to how to improve the plant overall. So that's where we need to grasp what is our real maintenance number. Once you get, I'm sorry,
Nancy, it's getting to, and I don't mean to interrupt before I lose it, but why then, that seems more like a plan that we have to have long range to figure out. Looking for a 10% increase seems like it's just an easy solution just to get money to rebuild the retained earnings, when the reality is we really need to see the bigger picture. If we need to really go out and bond this and do, something, $3 or $4 million, why wouldn't we want to know the full plan before we start saying, let's increase the sewer rates? Because the last time it was only 2%. This is a 10% increase. That's significant.
That's because the board didn't want to entertain a sewer rate from 2013 to now because of the master plan. In the real world, we should be increasing these rates 2.5% every year, just like Proposition 2.5, and setting aside for capital. We have the third lowest sewer rate in the surrounding communities. So, and that's from, I think, 2014 data. So what we need to embrace is, a regular increase in the rates that reflect the cost of doing business. And what we've done the last 3 years in my recommended budgets to this board is to absorb it and eat it out of the retained earnings so that the rates increases wouldn't be passed on along with the tax increase. And that was a decision made by this board a few years ago. What's happened now is, since we had a change of staff and the storms that impact our sewer and pump stations more disproportionately because of what they treat, it's been a double whammy in terms of already deferred maintenance and a lack of increase in rates that have forced us to do, instead of, let's say, 6 or 7 major projects in any 12 to 14-month period, 3 to 4. That's why you've seen recently this huge infusion of cash at every special town meeting, so that we've been able to address it. And you have a 2-page list in your packet of everything we've done, but we do need to get you the regular maintenance schedule for what it really costs to operate the department on a 12-month basis. We've been putting out fires for the last 2 years, so we really don't have a good handle on that, as Nancy was trying to say. But the other thing is, we're not going to use the prepay of the betterments that we've gotten to jam us up in later years, because we've used that money. That's why we created the sewer stabilization fund. So it's a couple of things. So,
Have we financed any of those improvements, or have we bought them with cash?
Most of what we've done has been bought with cash at
Yeah,
special town meetings.
almost
because
all of it.
Such an urgent nature. It couldn't
Yeah.
wait to go through a capital plan process. And
Couldn't wait to go to the capital plan, wasn't it on the capital plan?
no, some of them aren't.
no, they were at the special town meeting, because they were immediate, like, had to be fixed right away.
In reference to your question about the sewer betterments, that sewer betterment revenue has been dropping by about 50% for the prepayments every year for the last 3 years, because a lot of the refis and sales have now happened in that area, and there's not as much movement. We did capture as much of that revenue as we could and put it in sewer capital stabilization fund, but some of that revenue has been used for the operational budget. So when, John, you asked me about the 10%, it's trying to balance what we feel we need for the operational budget, which is to fill that $490,000 hole, but keeping in mind the impact to the taxpayer, who's already feeling it through their taxes, already feeling it through their water rates. So we were trying to be reasonable here by capturing about $150,000 worth of new revenue to try to offset the deficit that's going to appear, because those betterments aren't going to be there anymore. So we went from 433 to 253. It's about a $180,000 loss. We budget for $50,000 of prepaid betterments as a revenue source for all the different betterments, not just the Squashkit. So we're trying to bridge that gap without completely handing over another large increase to people. Would I prefer that you do a larger rate increase? Sure, but I don't feel that that is something that is defensible right now until we have a better handle on where we're going to go with those maintenance costs in the future. If we can bring that number back under control and therefore also bring our electricity number back under control, we might not be looking at another very large increase. Maybe we can then go to the incremental increases like Tricia was speaking about and be able to manage the budget that way. I'm not trying to rebuild the retained earnings. It would require a far greater increase than this to do that. All we're trying to do is make sure that we don't end up in a revenue deficit situation.
If you can put like a 10-year, 5-year plan together so we can look at what it looks like. I mean, 10% is a big increase.
It is.
So for you to, to suggest we go much higher is, I don't know where we go.
The other thought I had was, recognizing that we're paying a higher rate, seems like it's going up with electricity. What about if the sewer department were to buy solar panels? Put down the solar panels for their own electricity, and then you'd have your own electricity, and you wouldn't have to necessarily be paying this to National Grid.
It's certainly something we can look into.
We've got the land next to it, we're Go Green in that area, and, I'm sitting here going, at least that way you'd offset these costs that keep going up higher and higher.
The only thing that I would want to check would be our existing agreements with the solar array and the wind turbine for us to bring on another.
Yeah, I don't know if we can do that, because we already exceed. Yeah, we've already
Just the money's
exceeded.
going to a different bucket.
Yeah, it's
We're
going-
taking that money and we're putting it somewhere else to do something else with it. Maybe we need to take some of that money and put it.
You can do that, and we have done that. We did that 2 years ago. We took some of the solar array revenue and put it towards electricity in the sewer.
I'd like to think Al explored that. I don't think we have the flat level land to put panels up. I don't believe.
I thought we were maxed already with the...
More than we can use right now?
No, we can't put any more solar. We already produce more than we use now.
Right, so if you can throw a couple scenarios together, then we can look at this and see what makes sense. Now, my other concern is we're going from the cheapest to the most expensive septic disposal fee, right?
Correct. Well, we would be the same as Marshfield. So we're going from there were 3 examples that I could provide to you. One was Scituate, which is currently at 6 cents per gallon for private haulers to bring septic into the plant. Kingston is at 6.5 cents per gallon, and then Marshfield's at 7. So this would bring us up to the same level as Marshfield. So if somebody was pumping on Hummerock and they had a choice of going to Marshfield or Scituate,
I can go to Marshall. Oh, no, it doesn't matter.
If they can
They go to
accept
the same. Right, you're right.
So,
Doesn't matter.
I don't know what, I mean, the guys at the plant probably have a better sense of that.
We bring in a lot of septic that's not generated in this town. I mean, we're 40% sewered, so, you know, a lot of towns don't even do this. So they're coming to us.
So let me ask you about that. So we ask for an address, and the guys driving the truck provide an address. It's just written, oh yeah, I came from Edith Holmes Drive.
Yep.
Just, you know, that's
17 times.
right. There's no way to check.
Right. We're getting a lot of out-of-town septic because of our rate.
Well, I assume we make money, right?
we do. Septic disposal fees do bring in money, and it was also a way to try to share the cost, so it's not just the sewer, the person that's on public sewer that's paying, it's also someone that potentially who has a septic system, who has a private hauler, it's built into that private hauler's rate.
So my point is, we're going from the lowest to the highest. You know, what's the impact that, is our usage going to go down?
It also depends on driving time, too. As Sean can attest, how much is it going to cost if you were, say, in the West End or something, to go all the way to Marshfield or something to that effect? The time in the fuel money is also in effect.
All right, well, we're not going to vote it tonight, but
We'll bring it back to you with that 5 to 10-year maintenance contract.
So this has to be on your next agenda because the budget needs to have the infusion of cash. So we'll have that.
Question, when you get your septic pump, doesn't that get recorded at the Board of Health?
No.
Don't they have to?
No.
No?
No.
Just had mine done a few weeks ago. I don't know.
No, you don't. You have to be licensed by the Board of Health as a septic honey dipper, but not,
License them, yeah.
right, we license them, yeah.
I was just curious, because then if you could,
But
then
you
could
don't, they
track down whether or not
don't,
you
they don't
qualify.
provide the addresses or whatever, that's their own business plan.
Is there anything else that the board would like to see in the next presentation to you?
just historic actuals also, so.
Yep,
the last 5
absolutely.
years.
Yeah, we did have a presentation for you, but we opted for this format because it was more familiar. But I don't think it would have been as inclusive as what you're requesting, so we will definitely put that together for you and have it for you for the next meeting.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Next, we have old business. We have a discussion vote of the Veterans Cemetery Regulations. John Knapp. Yeah. How are you, Don? So, I was looking for revisions in the policy, first of all. There are no revisions, right?
No.
You gave the guidelines of the other communities.
Right, yeah, I saw that.
No, thanks. Have it on there.
I'm trying to...
So so you're waiting for us to figure out what we want to, I mean, I feel strongly about having the opportunity for someone that's lived in Scituate for most of their lives, have an opportunity to be buried in the town cemeteries. We just have to figure out how to get it into the guidelines, from my perspective. And you gave us an example of probably 20 different communities, which all do it.
Different. I mean, there's,
Different way, yeah.
like Boston and Quincy, it's, if, you know, where were you at the time that you went into the service? That, you know, that one makes sense.
I also think the one in Lakeville, you know,
Lakeville's very inclusive.
where, that's very inclusive, where a veteran goes out to a care facility. I mean, I think that's important, because, we don't have care facilities here, really, in Scituate. We have a couple, but
I
they're
think
likely to go out, so I think we need to distinguish that as well.
Yeah, and I know it's not in there, but we do recognize that right now. That is
Oh, okay.
that is a practice.
Well, then maybe we need to make sure we
Put it in there.
we put it in.
I
yeah.
agree.
So I went through a few of them. I saw Quincy's and I liked it, but then I happened to see, what is it, Peabody's, Burlington's, and actually Newburyport. For example, current resident, or veteran, and then it said, or former city resident veteran at time of enlistment. I think that's important. And then they say you were DD 214. I assume that's your...
Discharge, yeah.
Discharge. It must state that you enlisted from the city of, or in this case, the town of. I think that should be a criteria, potentially. What I also like, this is from Peabody, they said, if you're married, a spouse, she must, or should be she or she, must be cremated and placed on top of vault or next to urn if husband was, or wife was cremated. I think that's something the board should consider, you know, at least if the spouse is there, if they're going to be cremated, then it's not much of a space issue on that. The other one from Burlington I liked was, for a minimum, they had a minimum of 1 year. I'm not sure I'd go that far. Resident also includes someone who lived in Burlington for at least 1 year, and again, that 1 year requirement, but left Burlington to reside in a care facility. And I think absolutely putting language in that if somebody leaves to go into a care facility, they might be in there for 5 or 6 years, depending on, and may not be able to afford to move into Life Care or to Cardigan. They end up going to Weymouth or somewhere else, or they move out to go to where they're closer, where the parents or their kids lived. So one thing I like about Newburyport was they actually got more defined, and I guess like I did with the Waterways Committee, I like that because one is they say a veteran, the next they said any member in the armed forces of the United States who dies on active duty. It's automatically assumed if they wanted to go, they could go, but I think spell it out there. And obviously we recently had somebody from the Kelly family that, you know, I think makes sense. We hope that never happens again, but it's there. The other, what I liked was any member of the Armed Forces of the United States who was approved by, and they had the Newbury City Council majority vote. My question is, does this board want to have some discretion that if there's some kind of applicant, you know, we're the buffer, we make that ultimate decision if there's some circumstance that may not be covered by these potential policies, or, you know, to consider. They also got into the spouse, they got into a dependent child. If the child was unmarried and under age 21, child could be buried with it. I think that's a nice thing, too. I've seen that happen. I know my sister is one in particular, being buried with my father and mother, and he's a vet. So I just looked at some of these, and they defined who's a spouse. Legally married, not divorced. Kind of makes sense. To consider that, too, as a possible explanation. I think the reason why we need to be cautious is because we're one of 3 in the Commonwealth that have private town-owned veteran cemetery. And I think, you know, it's great, it's easier to just spell it out, identifies it, makes it easier. It's not you, it's not us, it's the future generation, so people can read it and understand it, and they understand whether they are going to fit the criteria or not. So I'm, like I said, again, we just got this yesterday. I only had a chance to look at this today, but I'm happy to at least add my 2 cents to them, and I need the actual document. I only had a PDF, so I need a Word format so I can at least add to circulate it, because I think, to me, I would want a lot of this criteria in there for people.
The only other one I'd add is I like the fact that they lived here for a long time. I think Quincy said 25 years, over 25 years. But I think all those components that you said were great. The problem we're going to have, as I think Don mentioned, is we don't have enough room. Right. You know, so I think it's going to go quick, but that's okay. We can still set up the guidelines the way we want them, and maybe we'll expand it a little bit at some point in time.
Sean?
Did I miss something? Did you, John or Tony, did you say that they must be cremated?
Well, see, that's another thing. If you cremate, then that means it makes more space and makes it larger. That's a consideration.
I mean, right now, the rules are, and what's the practice has been, that if there's already a full burial in there, again, the space is already taken. If there's a cremation, then it does go into that space. They don't go over to the cremains garden or anything. They go right back in that space. DPW usually goes over, digs a hole, and that's how it's handled.
They don't do a full burial on top of another one, do they?
They do if the
spouse, I'm saying.
Right, and in the guidelines, if it is that way, there has to be a, it's stated right out, there has to be a sheet of metal over that. If most of them are side by side, but if it does come to that, there's regs on that.
Space.
Yeah.
Right. Can I ask another question? It came up last night. Is the lot line on the cemetery we're talking about, is it the stone wall? Is it, Did it encroach on the Little League field at all?
No, it didn't. The lot line is the stone wall, and that was checked before we built it.
Just talk about that.
No, it's not.
All right, well, how do you want to go from here?
So,
Anybody?
do you mind putting?
I'm happy
it
to.
together?
I just need the Word document.
You're going to be busy.
Anyone have any other,
Get it to me sooner than
any
later.
issues with any of the
No.
stuff, or anyone to add?
No, I mean...
it's
you've got
kinda-
So
some
Tony,
points
are you
of-
saying, are you gonna put a timeline of 10, 20, 25 years?
25 years, I thought.
That they live?
But they had to live here, a minimum of?
I mean, that's just one that could fall into any one of the other criteria. They could have been gone into the service from here, they could still be living here. But if someone felt that this was their home, then I think they should have, and they were a veteran, I think they should have the opportunity to...
And I agree, no
Yeah,
matter where they
it's
go
not
to
work.
retire?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Whether they're healthy in Florida or... at a-
Obviously, if we have the space.
I think Tony's saying, if I'm correct, you live here, you know, you go, you do your service, you move here when you're age 30, you live here until 55, you move away. But at some point, it was more meaningful, they want to come back because they were here for 25 years. That's the type of category you're talking about, as opposed to, which I think you're thinking is, in order for you to be buried there, you have to have lived here 25 years. Even if you move in here for 10, retire, your family's here, you die, you don't get in because you didn't live here 25 years. That's what you're concerned about.
Well, yeah, but thinking...
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's when I think I can play with the language and cover both those bases. I just want to make sure that's what your concern is, right?
Well, for clarification...
Living in When they served?
That's going to be part of your, yeah.
Perfect.
So if someone is 20 years old, they go away, I mean, they join, they go into the service 8, 9 years, they come back to Scituate for a year, they move away, they've left, they've gone into the service, whatever branch it happens to be from Scituate, but they don't live any part of their life.
That's a criteria you can get in. That's one of them.
Goes along with that.
So you're incorporating a lot of different
Right,
criteria.
just give them multiple options so that, you know, it's not, you know, you got to die here. If you die here, then you're in. That's it. I mean, we'll create like 4 or 5 categories and take a look at it.
I
Does that
agree.
make sense?
Yeah.
Thanks for going.
So we'll put this on the agenda for the next meeting
Good.
as well.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you. Next, we have an update on GATRA from Tricia.
Can you give this to the board, please? So, a couple of you contacted me over the past couple months about the status of the sloop and also the potential to, I can't hear. The potential for the sloop to go to North Scituate. So Linda Hayes and I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Frank Gay, who's the executive director. What you have here is the ridership information for the past year. More than we thought, and getting stronger each month. And Frank, that email you have that he sent me today at 4, which is the second page, says that the ridership was increased from July from last month. Good. So there's a couple of things, however, that are going on as far as not only the ridership, but the potential to expand the route to North Scituate, and that has to involve with the requirements that GATRA must meet to do ADA demand response service. And that means that any individual living in Scituate that's eligible for these ADA demand services within a 3/4 of a mile radius around the current route has the opportunity to be serviced. And that's...
That's a regulation?
That's, right. And that's an additional cost, obviously, and that is a cost to the town. So the combination of this additional cost plus extending the route to North Scituate is likely not financially feasible. So in order to accommodate both those, however, we talked about manipulating the schedule, not the route so much. So looking at potentially going to North Scituate, but looking at the ridership, say, very early in the morning, or eliminating Sunday service. Sunday service gains us $25,000. It costs $50 an hour to run the sloop. So Frank is working on those numbers at GATRA right now to see what the cost of hiring the third-party administrator will be to accommodate the ADA demand response that's required. There's a couple of options there. However, if we expand the route out to North Scituate, then again, it's 3/4 of a mile to that route, which means we're paying for a service that's going to encompass a good chunk of Cohasset, because the North Scituate is close to that line. So we've asked for a map to see that. And then if we can manipulate the schedule such that by eliminating some pickup, drive times, we can run it to North Scituate, we can do that. Frank said there's a little bit money left still in our cherry sheet assessment that's paying for what we pay for now. So the important thing to remember is the town does not pay for this through the general fund. It comes as an offset cherry sheet assessment to the town because of the MBTA. We have an offset to revenue that comes, state revenue that comes to the town, because we are contingent or part of an MBTA community. And that is what's subsidizing the public transit. So that's why we have to be conscious when we look at these routes and running them different places, that it's within that ability to afford. Otherwise, the town is picking up a new cost that it hasn't had in the past. So I hope, I'm happy to answer.
If you're within 3/4 of a mile, how do you use that service?
So it's essentially like our dial-a-ride in the Council on Aging right now. It's a separate vehicle.
Request it.
Or it's not the GATRA sloop, it's a different...
That is an option, as you'll see in the thing I just handed out. It's called a deviated route, and essentially it means if somebody...
Yeah, we don't have...
Oh,
It's my fault.
I'm sorry.
And I didn't see the email. I was wondering about the email.
I'm sorry.
It's my fault. I always ask how we do it.
So the deviated route would be if you called 24 hours in advance, the sloop would actually deviate from the route and go get you. But then, of course, that may put the schedule behind. So there were both pros and cons to doing that, and as this email indicated, they're still working on looking at that.
Do they have a set schedule now? They never posted schedules.
None of the schedule's been finalized because this has been a pilot program for us for a year to see if it's going to be here forever. And the ridership has been driving that.
And
so
is it favorable to?
As you can see, it's been steadily increasing.
It's increasing, right.
Yeah,
The numbers there.
and as I said, that email indicates that July was also a significant increase. So that's a good thing. But I did a quick back of the envelope. I have 12 months of ridership data, and it looks like for July, 14 people use the bus on a Sunday for the whole month. So if we want to adjust the schedule, then obviously we want to do it with the least impact to those people that ride.
So he'll be able to give us the numbers for Sunday ridership?
Right, so, and to your point, Tony, they have all these ready to go. This has already been printed, but if we go to, and this is a draft that hasn't gone to print, because if we go to North Situate, then that's when it becomes final, and that's when all the signage goes up. But this is the schedule right now.
Get the service, if they want the service, then maybe it doesn't have to be part of the route. As long as we communicate, if they're within if North Situate's within 3/4 of a mile of the route, and somebody wants it, and they just have to make a phone call to get it there.
They have to be ADA eligible.
Yeah.
So I got a question.
ADA paratransit.
Does Frank have information, like you take Sunday, 14 people rode it. How many trips does it take per day? How many trips does it go?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm just saying, okay. So if it's a half-hour loop, the guy goes from, 8 or 9 in the morning until 5 or 6 at night? 20 or something.
So the route is 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday, and 6:25 a.m. till 7:20 p.m. Monday through Friday.
The reason why I'm asking this is because let's take Sunday, 14 people. Are they taking it at the same time? Are they trying to get to a train? Are they just taking it to go to church? Are they taking it just to go downtown? Identifying that's significant. I'm not saying us. I wonder if we could, if Frank has this info, if they do, maybe not. It should be interesting to get even a student just to ride it for a week to figure out what rides are being taken at what time. Because there are many times where I'm sure there's no rides going in that loop. And I keep thinking, maybe you have two loops. You have one loop that goes this direction for, 9, 10, 12, or whatever it is, or 9, 11, every uneven hour, and then on the even hours, you do the other loop. And at least you're trying to change the direction of everything instead of keeping the one loop every hour. If the ridership is, if you get people taking it constantly, that doesn't work. But I'm like, is there some way of like spreading it out because the ridership is not taking it as significantly as often as,
I do see a lot of the same people down around Scituate Harbor area that are on that all the time.
And the reason why I say it is this. The ADA, let's face it, people who aren't disabled probably get in their cars and drive, or ride their bikes, or walk. The people who really are looking to take this are people who are probably somewhat limited in their ability to ambulate, and certainly who are disabled. They're going to be the ones who take it. Now, there are others who aren't, but I would assume that might be one of the things. So I think it's, even though it's going to go off the route if they're looking for it, I think it's an important service for those people who need it. Just the question is now how to finance it and fund it.
Well, the other question is North Scituate. Would North Scituate, if we included it, maybe North Scituate doesn't have to be on every trip. Maybe it has to be maybe a morning, an afternoon, and an evening, something to bring some people in and out of North Scituate Village. You have Lincoln Park there.
That's where I say Wheeler Park, Lincoln. You just tell, when the people understand that the bus is coming at 9 in the morning, 12, or 4,
And
or
they
7.
get used to that.
They know it.
Yeah.
And then you'd say Wheeler Park's going to be the next, or whatever, Lincoln Park, Central Park. They're all connected, because I presume that's a lot of the people who are going to be using it potentially.
Right.
Or you just do less loops and make it longer. Make it a 45-minute ride and get up into North Scituate.
Good point.
Do less runs a day. Yeah, you could do that too. Because, I think that, I think there's probably people that live down in North Scituate that have doctor's appointments down on the Driftway where a lot of those doctors are. So I think it would be a big help for those people, especially going from Lincoln Park. Most of the people in Lincoln don't have vehicles, I would guess.
I agree.
So.
Well, plus you can get people just to North Scituate, to the restaurant.
Well, that's the other thing too. Exactly. It works for everybody.
I would vote towards expanding the route, including North Scituate, and doing less loops.
If that's possible, I agree.
Yeah, that could offset.
I'm sure that's going to be one of his options, right, Tricia?
And then the
I
other
can
thing
ask. The longer, you meant, the longer we take to finalize the route, because people, like you said, Marty, once we finalize the route, people are gonna depend on that bus being there.
Right.
So, I'll follow up with him tomorrow on the feedback from the board, and they have to implement the ADA demand service very soon. So, it should be a quick turnaround time in terms of what we get.
Since that ADA service would creep into Cohasset, does their cherry sheet balance cover any of that?
Nope.
I think we're making a reach to think that that's going to...
Cohasset's is that Plymouth County or Norfolk? It's a different county.
I always forget.
I don't think we can worry about having people in Cohasset calling water, so at least we can judge.
On the flip side, they'll be shopping maybe, or attending their services here in Scituate, so that's a good thing maybe.
Tricia, is there any way that with some of the ADA rides, that there's no way that we can pick those up with our COA side at all? Are they too busy?
It's a regulation.
No. However, we do think that a number of the individuals we've identified as needing ADA service, I would say maybe upwards of 80% of them are already identified to our Council on Aging.
Oh, so that's good.
So,
So it could be
so
minimal.
therefore, again, we won't know till we actually do the service and provide it, because that's federally mandated.
Right.
But again, it's for ADA demand response service for any age. But we think, as I said, in the first, I think, number, the preface to the email that I just sent you said that Joanne wasn't able to provide that information because she was on vacation. We think we know almost 80% of them, so that's helpful.
Good.
So.
Do you think we can get the detail of this? Because I think Marty may have alluded to it. from 6 to 8 in the morning, it may be people trying to get to the train.
I will ask, I would not count on it. I do not think the driver's looking to see where everybody's going every day.
No, at the time, if you knew that the biggest traffic was in the
Oh,
morning.
yeah.
All joking aside, though, I did ride it just to see what their schedule was, and they do try to, they make sure that they get to Greenbush on the pickups and on the drop-offs at the trains.
So wait a minute, I reversed myself. So we don't have the time that the ridership is, but we do have where they're getting on. So we have detail of where all those
they're
folks are
going.
getting on, yep. And most...
So students get on or not?
I bet they do.
Yeah, getting on and off. So it should be no surprise that the bulk of them are getting on and off at Village Marketplace, and then the
CVS.
second highest is...
CVS.
Is Greenbush.
Oh, Greenbush, yeah, so for the train.
Yep, yep.
They save $4,
Yep.
net $3, right?
But I'll ask if it's broken down by the time sequence as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay?
Those are all discussion. I thought there were 12 different ones.
Okay, next we have a discussion of vote of the adaptive building reuse and interfund borrowing. Tricia and Nancy?
Wait. So, I wanted to update the board on sort of next steps following up. You've had the recommendations from the Adaptive Reuse Committee a couple months ago, and then the board had an extensive discussion of where you were in terms of those recommendations, and I think it's fair to say they were pretty varied, and there was sort of not a consensus, because the only consensus really was that you needed more information before you could make any real definitive decisions about moving forward in some direction or another. So, following up with that, I met with Al and discussed it again with Karen Pritchett, who's the chair of the Adaptive Reuse Committee, and you have a memo from me proposing a number of next steps, some of which are in place already, and I'll just briefly go through them. One was getting sort of definitive cost from a professional appraiser as to what Gates is actually worth. And although we did have some due diligence done on the part of the committee, from the context they had, we're actually going to engage an appraiser to do that. The other part of this is there isn't consensus around what to do with the Brook Street Council on Aging once we find a new home for the senior center. However, it's very important, I think, to also know what that building is worth. So we've engaged someone to do that at a cost of $7,500. I believe I executed that contract a couple weeks ago. We have the names of two firms. I think this was Mr. Marty's suggestion, to look at the potential for affordable housing. Perhaps ostensibly selling Gates and developing affordable housing in there, leasing it, or something like that. So we know two firms that actually do that. One particularly does affordable housing in old schools. They're called the Stratford Company. So if the board's sort of on board with some of this stuff tonight, Al and I would reach out to those folks. The third, and probably the most important thing, is similar to the process we followed for the public safety complex, where we engaged an architect to do a feasibility study to look at 3 sites to see what was the most suitable for the public safety complex. We would do that, again, just like we did for a feasibility study for the Council on Aging. But those 3 sites would be behind Gates School, as recommended by the Adaptive Reuse Committee, at the former original Branch Street location site in 2007, and land on the Driftway that the town went out to lease for the Ocean Campus Center several years ago. Again, if the board is amenable, this is just my recommendation along with Al's. The Purple Dinosaur Park, because we already have good information on that. And then the other thing that came up is the potential, if the board was amenable, to asking the Housing Authority if we could do a feasibility study for the land that they own on Kent Street, and possibly do a land swap for the land that we own that was originally going to go on the Branch Street site, the Council on Aging site. And, you know, this, I have a map, if you want to see, of actually where that land is. Now, the other addition that we would do when we engage the folks to do this feasibility study, would ask them to do something that came up during your discussions, is in addition to the feasibility study, the Gates School site and the original Branch Street site would have extensive soil studies and soil testing done, because there was a lot of question about the development sites in the Branch Street's original location. One of the reasons, though, we've learned since the board last discussed this, is the reach into that lot where the Council on Aging was going to be built. One of the reasons the site development costs were, is it's literally connected to nothing, and a long egress in off of Branch Street, back between the library and the Housing Authority. The utilities would all have to be dragged there. There's absolutely nothing there to connect. And an easement was also going to have to be granted by the Housing Authority. So we really would want to know what those development and soil tests would be out there. So that's what we're proposing in terms of next steps, and then once we get the answers to those questions, we'll be in a position to come back to the board, and you can revisit some of the recommendations and questions that you had after we have some more definitive answers.
Sean?
On the central school property you were just talking about, can you look into the accessing it by Landing Lane?
Landing Lane, yeah.
I don't know if it's wet, I've never been beyond the last house down there.
It's very treed, it's all woods. It's all woods. And it's a good size amount of property that's back there. But again, the egress was only coming from off of Branch Street. And what was the street you said, Sean?
Langdon.
Langdon, yeah.
It's on that map, if you look.
Yep, I see it. Yeah, I
Greg
see
was
it.
talking about that as a potential field.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I played baseball behind Central School. In the fields, I haven't been back there in a long time, but there were 2 Little League fields behind the school, and I don't know if they're overgrown.
There's quite a bit of land back there.
Yeah, somebody else brought that up the other night, that they used to be fields.
Right.
Trish, I don't know if you know the answer to this question. That Kent Street location, the possible land swap, isn't there a deed restriction on that property?
For what?
I thought it was for affordable housing only. It was left to the town. But it can
So
only be
one of the
used for-
things is that that's a large plot as well, and that it could support both affordable housing and a Council on Aging in sort of some kind of joint project, which we would look at.
Okay, that answers that question.
That would be good.
Fairway Villages.
The Beanfield.
Go down Situate Country Club set.
Do you know the size of that lot off the top of your head? No? Okay.
Kent Street one?
Wait, Kent Street?
Yeah.
That was 7,
I think it's 7? I was going to say 15, but
No.
Yeah, it was,
I don't, it's been so long since I looked at it, Sean, I don't remember.
You know, the dune is right there
Yeah,
behind.
and then John Lopes used to plant beans. So you come.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, not long ago, it was Beanfield.
Okay.
So I'm just looking for an endorsement for the board to move forward on these items if you're agreeable.
I say yes.
I'm just a little reluctant to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on another feasibility study, you know, if the board doesn't have a grasp on what we want to do.
So it's
well, it's
not,
just for the senior center.
it's not,
Identify the locations.
we paid less than $60,000 for the feasibility study for the police station.
So how much do you think all of this, I mean, you just rattled off 4 or 5 locations. Soil testing, what do you think it's going to cost?
So the request before you is not to exceed $75,000.
And at the end, we're going to get what?
You're going to get 2 appraisals and a feasibility study on 5 sites.
Okay, I can live with that.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do it at some time.
I think it's important to find the right place.
Yep.
You know.
I'm just sort of looking at it as due diligence, and if, you know, if we have 5 sites and it looks like, you know, it really can only be Gates or something for the senior center, which is my understanding is the board's next priority, at least to get some definitive answers, then that helps us move the dialogue.
Okay?
Right, and I guess my thought is if we wanted to go on gates regardless, then let's not spend 100 grand looking at other spots. And I don't feel that way, I'm just saying, if the board feels, if we don't want to put it on Branch Street, then let's not spend 10 grand to look at it over there. Wherever.
But I think the other thing that's going to be really important, and we'll have that very shortly, is how much Gates is really, really worth.
Right. That's what, we'll have that soon.
As what, Tricia? What are your thoughts? As a, on the open market for the town to sell? Gates building.
Yes, what, the appraisal is going to be what the building would be worth if we sold it. And then the other thing is, we're also going to meet with folks who develop affordable housing. I mean, obviously, the building could have other uses. It could be sold and be condos, it could be leased, it could be a council on aging. But that's what we'll know, is if it's, you know, if anybody has any interest for that.
Sure. Move forward with the feasibility study for the options for the senior center.
Second.
Second by Mr. Danahy. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Thank you. So Nancy is going to do the interfund borrowing for you, so we can borrow the money to do that. We already have the existing appropriation from the 2012 annual town meeting for just these kinds of work.
Just these, say that again? So 2012, we had an article for
$375,000 for any studies, consultants, engineers, etc., to assist in the public facilities master plan. And there's over $150,000 still in that.
Very good.
Gotcha.
Good. Nancy.
Hello again. So the interfund borrowing before you would just authorize the town to utilize its own funds up to $150,000. As Tricia said, it's expected to be about $75,000. We only can do this through the end of the fiscal year, which will be June 30th of 2017, and then we have to replace it. We would only borrow short-term the amount that was spent, not the full amount. And we would expect to do that borrowing probably in February. That's when the current ban that's outstanding matures. If not, we could do it in a separate ban in June if we didn't know the full cost at that time.
So are we authorizing 75 or?
It was prepared by Pam for 150, which is the balance of the
No, I
authorization.
don't want it. I just want the 75.
So we can reduce that to 75.
That'd be
We'll just give you
great.
new paperwork
Yeah.
for signature for later.
I didn't know she had done that, Nancy. I just needed the 75.
Yeah, because we want to
Right.
see that.
Motion, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Move that the Board of Selectmen approve the interfund borrowing request prepared by the Treasurer-Collector in the amount of $75,000 for the design and engineering of the Gates Middle School and the former senior center.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay, moving on to new business. I'm going to skip down to, there's a gentleman in the audience that's been waiting forever from the Poor Guys. So you can be first, sir. Just come up and tell us your name, and I don't know if are you Peter?
No, I'm Lane.
You're Lane, okay. I had two guesses.
Lane Plumley, co-owner of the Poor Guys Beverage Catering Company.
All right. I mean, I've looked at all your application and everything. I don't know if anybody's got any questions here.
First time for him, I take it?
Yep.
That's what he said.
I know some of the things that he has done. I spoke to Lorraine about some of the things earlier in the day. But what he'd like to do also is become a regular at the Maritime Center. So that's one of the things he's looking at. He does have an event coming up.
So this is a first event? So what happens is you have your first event, and then we'll get feedback as to how you complied, and then we can make a determination whether you go on the regular list or not.
Excellent, thank you. I also we have our own liquor license. We come with a 12C off-premise liquor license, and we have a quadrupled liquor liability insurance policy is what we also provide. I know that you guys also ask for a one-day liquor license. I don't know if you still need that with our state ABC.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you share that information with Mrs. Devon when you
I
made
did.
your
I sent
application?
her- I sent her
Yeah.
everything.
So no, you still need the local one day from here.
Okay.
So tell us, what do you do?
We're a catering company that just specializes in alcohol beverages. So basically, we bring a bar with us. Everyone's tip certified that does work for our company. We provide our own liquor license and our own liquor liability insurance policy.
Out of where?
The liquor liability insurance policy is out with Hollis Insurance.
No, the company.
No, yourself.
Where do you live? What's your company?
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. We're out of Plymouth, sir.
Plymouth.
Yes.
And where do you do this? Where else do you do it?
We have
Are you involved with any other building, like you're trying to get on this?
No, our client wanted to use your facility, and we're just going by the guidelines that you guys have for it, just to follow it. And I also noticed, like I said, you have a vendor list. We'd love to be a part of the vendor list.
So what are most of your parties? What kind of activities do you do this?
We do weddings. We have to do the U.S. Rowing Championship that's held in Worcester this week. We just finished. We did Levitate. We're a business that's only been around for just over. We're roughly getting close to our 2-year anniversary, so we're still a very small company. We're trying to compete with the bigger companies and get
So
in.
what type of events have you done, other than the rowing event?
We've done wedding events,
Levitate.
anniversaries, Levitate Music Festival. They want us to come back on as a regular vendor for them. We've done co-ops with Knockabout Brewery out of Mashpee, Long Trail, and also El Knife.
Nice.
So our events are mostly birthday parties?
Correct.
Smaller, not...
Yes, that's how
big,
the capacity is 100-person capacity. That's how we started our company. We just trying to do anything and everything that we can do.
Sean?
Said,
Oh, no, I didn't want,
I thought you had a question.
yeah, I do. First, you sound like you just serve alcohol, but now I'm reading some of the backup, you provide food as well.
Correct. We also provide food, and we also engage with other catering companies as well, like strictly food catering companies, and we bring
But if
those
I
in.
just hire you, you're gonna be able to have food as well as liquor?
No. No, well, we have a very small menu of food. For example, if you're looking for actual entrees and everything else,
Pig roast, so.
we would have to subcontract with a company that does that pig roast.
Do we have any other caterers that do just that? I don't know.
Taylor.
That do just liquor?
Taylor.
Yes, I don't.
I mean, he has some,
All right.
he's done some sandwiches
Yeah.
and stuff, but for the most part.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, John?
No.
Okay, we have a motion?
Well, we have to
Second?
change this because the motion
So
says...
let's wait until we hear the feedback, is that probably?
Yeah.
Or we're just giving it for
Give them
this
one
event?
day.
Just do it for the one event.
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the Poor Guys as an approved bartender for the town of Scituate, the Maritime Center, for a one-day permit, or I guess for the Maritime Center,
At 8.
August 27th.
on August 27th, 2016.
5 to 11 p.m.
What motion am I reading here? It doesn't have it. I'm looking. All right, I'm going to withdraw.
If you got it, read it.
I move,
Read it. This one doesn't have
Will
it.
the Board of Selectmen vote the Poor Guys catering business for a one-day license at the Scituate Maritime Center on August 27th, 2016, from 5 to 11 p.m. for an anniversary party?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Good luck.
I heard great things about you from Marshfield, so
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
then we're going to move back to Gennaro's on the top.
Come back tomorrow, yeah.
Gennaro's? All right.
Yeah, it was the first one, John. I just took this gentleman because he was sitting there since he was supposed to be up an hour and a half.
Is this one of the...
Yeah, so Mrs. Devon, yeah, you can give her a call if you want.
Have they ever come before us before?
They have not. That's why we collected the same documentation that we did for the Poor Guys. We have their certificate of liability, their tips.
Yeah.
And we
You
check
might be familiar with
references.
Gennaro's time.
but they were a caterer, you know, a particular person wanted to use the maritime.
So here's my suggestion. Considering that they're looking to do it on the 19th, which is Friday, I would not want to hold up
What's that?
whatever this is for.
Another
What's the
one.
event? And what's the event for? Do I know? I'm trying to figure out. Does anybody know what the event is?
Doesn't say.
It's for the 19th. So,
Doesn't say. To serve,
I don't know if anybody's familiar with Gennaro's. I'm very familiar with Gennaro's. They're in Quincy. They're a restaurant. They have a catering service. They're excellent.
What kind of food?
It's Irish food, yeah.
so my
I asked Tony, I said, are you familiar with, you gotta know Gennaro's. He goes, is that an ethnic slur?
well, my only thing is this, I would move to grant it, but for future reference, if anybody's new to the town,
They should
I
be
wanna, they gotta be here.
So let me clarify that. She was here. There was a miscommunication on our part. The error was on our part. And she was here at 6:30, and I told her she did not have to wait till 9:45 because she was told the wrong time.
It's a great little restaurant.
Okay, so that's on us, John. And you do see everyone, and this is the first instance when that has not happened. But
Okay.
it was our error.
Fair enough.
So can we get a motion then?
I'll
Move to
move-
approve a one-day beer and wine permit to Gennaro's Eatery for an event at Scituate Maritime Center on August 19th from 6 to 10 p.m.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? Seeing none?
Wait, hold on.
Oh, further discussion?
This is, the hard copy says 5 to 11, so why don't you say 5 to 11, gives them more time.
Okay.
Okay, you said 6 to 10, Tony?
Just reading what it
Yeah,
says.
no, but I mean, then we might cut them short.
right.
It's just,
I'd like to change that from, I'm going to do that again. Move to, what do I have to do, John?
Just rescind your motion and then reread it.
Rescind my previous motion.
I'll second that. How's that?
Second that. All in favor of rescinding that?
Aye.
All right, now move it.
Move to approve a one-day beer and wine permit to Gennaro's Eatery for an event at the Scituate Maritime Center on August 19th from 5 to 11 p.m.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Sean must be going.
So who do we got next?
C, Silent Chef. There's a couple for Silent Chef.
move to approve a one-day wine and malt license for the Silent Chef at the Scituate Maritime Center on September 3rd, 2016, from 5 to 9 p.m. for a rehearsal dinner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Move to approve a one-day wine and malt license for the Silent Chef at the Scituate Maritime Center on August 27th, 2016, this time from 12 to 4 p.m. for a memorial service.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve a one-day wine and malt license for tailor-made bartending at Scituate Maritime Center on 8/21/16 from 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. for a bridal shower.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
The next one is for the Gar Hall. It's managed by Historical Society. I guess they have an occasion at the hall for memorial services, which occurred at the last minute, so I'm going to move to approve 5 one-day wine and malt licenses for the Gar Hall events.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. I just have a further discussion, just a question. So when we approve that for the JR Hall for all these events, how do we know who it is that's doing it?
We check them. We have them all.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
We fill in the caterer, the times, and who it was for.
Right, we hold them until they come and they say we need one.
Gotcha.
And then we
Okay,
fill in
okay.
all the data.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we're going to discuss a special town meeting. Special town meeting date in October.
Well, was it move the board to open the warrant? Is that what we're doing now? Or
You have to set the date before you
Set the
go.
date first.
Yeah.
I'm going in the order that was submitted in my tablet here.
Well, don't go by your tablet, go by the paper like you like.
Oh, yeah, she did put the executive action first, I see. Yeah, so the memo comes first, John.
Okay.
All right, so we're looking at any date between, was it the 2 dates? It was Wednesday and Thursday, isn't it?
Yep.
Wednesday, October 19th, or Thursday, October 20th. Those are the two dates that we have.
Is there any reason one would be better than the other?
Say those again? I'm sorry.
19th or 20th of October, Wednesday, Thursday.
Let's see what we got.
Anybody think of a reason why Wednesday or Thursday would be?
Is that the long weekend? Is that?
No,
The
that's
ninth,
the 10th.
isn't the
That's gone.
8th, 9th?
Yeah.
Nope,
It's the 20th.
the 10th. is
So it's
the-
right after that?
It's the following week.
Oh.
Yeah. Anybody?
I'd say Wednesday night.
Yes. Wednesday. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to move the Board of Selectmen open up the warrant for the October 19th, 2016, of the special town meeting
Second by Ms.
at 9:50 PM. How's that? Right, you need the time. Do you?
Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Now,
So you will be closing this warrant, just for people who were watching at home on September 6th, which
Closing
is
this.
at your next meeting.
okay. Closing, we didn't allow us much time, did we? huh? Okay.
And we'll put something in the newspaper and the website.
I think we should say that the main reason we're having this is we have to accept the flood maps.
Yep.
So that's why the timing
Why
of
it's
this
so
is.
early.
Typically, we do it a little later.
Right.
Yes, we do it, yeah, you're right.
Well, and the presidential election.
Yeah, the presidential, and the thing is, we have a 11-day new requirement on the early voting. So we are essentially having voting in town hall during normal business hours for 11 days before the November election.
Part of that moves in October.
So trying to do a town meeting on that is
crazy.
impossible.
Just a point of order. All right, my motion was to open the warrant, but I see from looking at this, I should be moving that the Board of Selectmen schedule the special town meeting for the date.
I
All
think
right?
you're,
So why don't we just go back over this to make sure that we have it right?
I thought we did.
I'm going to ask to move to rescind my previous motion.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, I'm going to move that the Board of Selectmen schedule the special town meeting for Wednesday, October 19th, 2016, at, that time is wrong, it's 9, or is it the time of the thing, or right now? What time would I put in?
No,
9:04.
7 o'clock. p.m.
Or 7
Oh,
PM.
for 7 o'clock PM. There you go.
yep,
Okay, and it's at, well, we haven't opened it yet. We just set the
yep,
date.
that's good, that's one
Second.
motion.
Okay, second by Ms. Vignani. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Now,
Now, next.
I move the Board of Selectmen open the warrant for the October 19th, 2016, of the special town meeting at 9:47 PM.
Jeez, it's earlier than the last one.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Now, the
Good.
reason I did was because my tablet says 9:53 and my phone says, I don't know, my tablet time's off.
How can the tablet be wrong?
Don't ask me.
My tablet's wrong too by 5 minutes. That's all right. Okay, so next we have a discussion and vote of the...
Appointment time?
Yeah,
It's 9:48.
Quincy. Discussion and vote of the acting town administrator's employment agreement.
So just a little background, you did this 5 years ago. This is an agreement that allows, under the charter, I'm supposed to designate someone as an acting town administrator if I'm out for any extended period of time. And so essentially, what this does is it allows Al to act in my absence, sign the warrant, and it also indemnifies him and holds him harmless for anything he does while he's in that capacity. It runs coterminous with the term of my employment agreement. So since that was renewed in February, we're finally catching up housekeeping, and
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Did you say that again?
I didn't get it. Am I supposed to stop talking?
Can you repeat that?
My kid showed me something on my phone.
Okay. All right.
So, and Mr. Bankett is amenable.
So basically, we've done this. This is pretty much expired.
Yeah, it expired. I mean, it's, Yes, you should have done it in
Sign a contract like
fact.
this?
Huh?
Was it identical to this?
It's identical, the only thing that's changed is the date.
Because there was a paragraph in there that I wasn't there. That was a
No,
little
it's identical to what he's had the last 5 years.
So let's say we don't like Al in 18 months, and we don't want you to appoint him. How do we have that ability to stop that?
The charter says that the town administrator shall appoint an acting administrator in her absence. You're not required to do this, but we do it because the Managers Association attorney recommended it, because if he's acting in my capacity, he needs to have the full power and authority and be indemnified.
Well, that was the part that, I mean, we love Al, it has nothing to do with Al, but then it says all parties must agree. That's the part that I was a little,
Where?
I read the whole thing earlier.
So the thing would be, if I wanted to change him out for any reason, then we'd come and amend that agreement. Or if you came to me and said, we don't want Al to
Isn't
be the
he
guy.
one of the parties that has to be in agreement? It says all parties.
No,
It does.
no, I'm not, I don't think that's the intent, though.
Okay, well, that's what it sounds like.
I think that's just in, hold on, let me find it, Marty.
I have a copy of it, I don't have it with me.
Well, I guess to your question, Tony, I think 1.2 says nothing in the agreement shall prevent, limit, or otherwise interfere with the right of the board.
By it says unless changed by mutual.
To rescind the appointment of the acting town. So
Right.
it sounds to me like we can, despite rescind it.
Where does it, hold on, I'm trying to answer Marty's first question, which is that the agreement's in full force and effect during the term of the current town administrator unless changed by mutual agreement of the
Right,
parties.
it's
So
a different
that's,
paragraph, though.
so
I
that's
will-
that.
I'll find
And
it.
then, John, I'm sorry, what was your
I
question?
think that Tony's question is answered in 1.2, that both you and we have the right to rescind the appointment of the acting town
Oh, yeah,
administrator.
it's right there, right. Board or the town administrator, yeah.
I just needed to know, I wasn't sure if we've executed this before. The second thing I didn't know is whose appointment is this? It's through you, and not through us.
But you can rescind it.
But we can rescind it.
Yep,
All right.
under 1.2.
Not that I do that, Al.
No, but it doesn't matter whose name, it's...
First
Marty,
paragraph.
It's only for Al.
Right,
It's just, yeah.
exactly.
All right.
Are you looking for something? Do you want a motion?
Will the Board of Selectmen vote to sign or authorize the town administrator to sign the employment agreement between her and the acting town administrator?
Okay, can I just hold 1 second? 3.1, this agreement shall become effective August 17th and shall be in full force and effect during the term of the current town administrator, unless changed by mutual agreement of the parties.
Right.
But which would include everybody, right?
It's the signatories at the end, which is Al and I.
Okay. All right, good. Sorry, Sean, you want to do it again?
I'll second Sean's motion.
Okay. Further discussion? Anyway, second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. What do
All
we?
right, what's next? The board retreat.
We are going to confirm our Board of Selectmen annual retreat date.
What are the dates?
10th or the 17th, you decided. 17th was the date, 10th was the backup. But you're all over the place. I heard from 4 of you.
Yeah, I cannot do the 10th. We have a family thing, but
And
that's what I
Tony,
was saying, is there a
yeah.
third date? I threw that back, but
I'm fine with the 17th if everybody is.
Did I not do the 17th?
I think you said the 10th would be better. You didn't say you couldn't, but you said it would be better, I think.
Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
9/17.
So it looks like the 9/17.
Okay.
Works for me.
Okay. Okay, and we're going to discuss this, set a date for the town council interviews. How do we do that?
Any way we want. On a Tuesday night, we're not meeting.
I'm just saying, if it's the Board of Selectmen, how do we do that?
Well, in the past, we do what, 3? How many?
2 only.
Oh, will we bring 2 in?
You can only do 2, right?
I forgot.
Excuse me?
What did we do the last time?
That's what I'm wondering.
You got 6, you got 6 proposals. The screening committee's recommending 5 to interview.
How long for each one, would you think, John?
Yeah, I think it goes like 40 minutes.
So the RFP is really, really comprehensive. There's everything you need to know. So the interview, you should really be able to drill down on some things you saw in the RFP that you got a question. The screening committee provided a 2-page memo to you on its observations that you can either read before you read the RFP responses or after.
I've read all the RFP responses.
Yep, so
today.
you, I have copies for you. John and Tony's yours in there. I have yours tonight. We met yesterday.
Did you understand what my question was, though? How do we do it? How do the Board of Selectmen?
You interview them in open session.
Okay.
We bring them in, they come in, I think it was like an hour each one. I think we set up, I think we had 3.
Yeah, I think we did
3 at a batch at a time and came in.
So I don't think you need an hour, because there's probably much more in these responses in the RFP than I'm sure you had last time.
I'm sure.
Do we do it
So-
prior, do we just, spread it out over our regularly scheduled meetings?
I would do a separate meeting.
Yeah.
Because you know what, it just,
You did a
it's already 10
separate
o'clock.
Different meeting.
We did,
Yeah, on and off night.
Yeah.
And then we just-
That's fine.
you know.
I think we did,
So we just need to
And do
identify
just
that
an
night?
off night?
yeah.
Is there a deadline when we want to have this done by?
You have an acting town council right now, so the sooner you make that decision, the sooner all of them will be able to transition.
Are they, probably, they can send somebody, whatever the time we decide, if we did it on Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
Well,
After Labor Day, is that a reasonable assumption?
I don't, well, I mean, you want to go through all the RFPs probably and stuff. I mean, a
So the
lot of it is-
RFP says basically you would endeavor to make a decision by October 1st. So we did give you sufficient time, so.
All right. Our next meeting after
6th, the 7th, the 13th?
30th,
Let me just ask you, and then, this is
13th.
before I was a selectman.
Yeah.
You guys used to only meet like once in August and once, how come there's so many more meetings now in the summertime?
A lot more going on.
Yeah, well,
Doing a good job.
I wasn't here at the time.
No, this summer.
next.
Typically we meet every 2 weeks.
Just the staff remembers when you used to only meet once in August.
Oh, but in the summertime, I mean, oh,
It's
way
just,
back.
is a lot more going on, Marty.
Okay.
So we want to meet the 13th on an off night?
13th is our next, not our next meeting, but I think it's the
6th
You don't
and
have,
13th.
you have a bye, so your next meeting's September 6th.
our next
Not
meeting
till-
is September 6th.
Yeah, you don't have a meeting the rest of this month.
Oh, wow.
Good job.
There you go.
See, back to credit again.
Takes that back.
Because it's
So
your
maybe-
second August meeting.
So what about the 13th? That might make sense.
Tuesday night?
Tuesday night.
To do all of them?
2 or 3 of them.
Well, we don't have to do.
You don't
we
have to.
read them and
Other
see what we
matters to
want,
us.
how many we want to do.
Want to bring in?
Why don't everybody take a look at them, okay?
Yes,
And
the
then-
13th.
We'll plan the 13th, and then our next meeting is,
6th.
what's the 6th?
You want to just set it from there, or you want to try and set it now?
I could see
say-
doing 4, but 5 may be a lot.
5.
Are we required to interview every applicant? I mean,
You are not.
yeah, I don't get invited back to every
But
RFP that I
But I
receive.
think I
if
would.
you feel you can review the RFPs and
Yeah, narrow it down.
narrow that down, then that would be great.
I put them in order, and I think there's 2 that I wouldn't, but I don't
So
know if we...
here's the thought.
Maybe on the
We may
6th.
not all
Everybody
agree
takes a
though.
look at them, rate them the way you think, get in touch with Marty, and Marty, then, you know, if everybody says they want to interview them all, then we should set up a meeting for interviewing them all, or if it means we're gonna have to bump it for another, maybe next meeting, which is the 20th, we can put 1 or 2 on the 20th, but at least do 4 on the 13th.
And you could come in
How
at,
about the 13th and the 14th?
Back to back?
Back to back, like
Sure,
Tuesday, Wednesday.
I'd be happy to do that.
Is Tuesday the primary, is 13th the primary, or is it?
That's a good question.
Not that it wouldn't affect us too much,
Doesn't
but... Oh, it's a
I'd go
big-
back
it's
to
a
back,
big-
Sorry.
just to get them done.
Keep them fresh in your mind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, I mean, it would be really helpful if you could rank order them and give them to Marty.
Yep.
And if there's, and after you review, if there's some that you don't feel should be interviewed, like the screening committee felt that one shouldn't, and one we were on the fence and figured that's your decision anyway, just in terms of responsiveness to the RFP, which was our charge. So, but that would be good. So then maybe there would only be 4.
Okay.
But that should go directly to Marty. It shouldn't come
But
to the
everybody needs a little
office.
bit of time to go through them. When do you figure?
I'm
The
good
end of
with
this
the
week or
13th or
something?
14th, that's a good plan.
No, but as far as getting a chance to read them and
By the
get
6th.
before this next meeting?
Yeah, they're pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'd say just, if there's a list that you want to interview, you make the list. That's why I say to you, if everybody wants to interview all 6 of them, fine, everybody's prerogative, but if you think there's less than that, that's fine too. Just give me
Yep.
Marty.
That's a
I think
good.
we're all going to be pretty close on them. I mean, I think it's,
And we would invite staff to the meeting, to the interviews, because, yeah, but they also work really closely with them too. Yeah.
All right, good. That takes care of that one.
okay, so now we're going to move on to other business.
What time are we going to do on the 13th? Like regular meeting time or start?
I think it should be a little earlier, but and if everybody can do that, I don't know if you can.
How's timing for travel?
6?
6, all right?
And do 6.
Yeah.
Is that Tuesday night?
It's a Tuesday.
Because that's going to push us, if we're doing roughly an hour per, it's going to put us at 10 o'clock with 4.
Yeah, well, it'll probably be like, some of them will be like 30 minutes, 25 minutes, some might be, it depends on, the interview.
But I think Trish is right, when you look at them, I don't think it's going to take an hour.
Yeah, you're not going to have them come in and present
You're
their
gonna know
firm
what
or
questions
whatever.
you have.
You just, it's really going to, it should be, the way we design the RFP, is things that jumped out to you in the response you want to focus in on, whether it's litigation or, but it's, because it's all in there, it's what you have. That's what at least happened to us.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, everybody good with that? Correspondence? Do we have anything?
I don't know if I can read it right now.
Team USA?
Yeah, Team USA. That's right.
No correspondence? The clerk?
Thanks, hold on one sec. I have new
I didn't
contacts.
see anything.
I don't really,
I didn't either, but...
Oh, the ABCC thing?
The fact that Monday's going to be open after Christmas? Is that the
Yeah.
ABCC?
Yeah. So they're saying that now licensed people can sell alcohol the day after Christmas, which is Monday.
Right.
Move to accept and not release the executive session minutes for 4:26, 5:10, 5:24, and 6:21, since the matters discussed are still pending at this time.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the executive session minutes for 7/5/16.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the meeting minutes for the 7/5/16 open session addendum.
Second?
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Addendum, what is that?
That means you were in open, you went in executive, and you came back out in open, so there's another that's why it's addendum.
That means that, okay. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the meeting minutes for 8/2/16.
Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Banahy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Any other business?
No.
Oh, did you talk to them about the access behind the school at that meeting? Public
What?
safety access?
To what John was concerned about?
behind the
No.
school?
He's just talking
The
about
baseball
just...
field, the football field back?
Oh, wait a minute, I was talking about how they were walking around. You're talking about...
You talking about fire access?
Yeah.
Yes.
Emergency.
Yes.
So they
Yep.
can't do it. Now, that's all supposed to be cleaned up by the start of school, right?
Yep.
That parking lot?
Yep.
And also the delineation of the field?
That's all taken care of.
It is.
We Pat's all over it, and he's got someone to engage to flag it. Yep.
Do you have anything, John?
No.
Sean?
Just last night at Recreation, the topic came up and you guys, probably wondering, the skate park was supposed to be done last day of school. It's gonna be done by the first day of school. Under, same budget, and they really didn't have any great answers what took them so long, but they're doing a good job. They might have done a couple of extra things at no charge, so Mara seemed quite pleased with what she has seen. And hopefully, I think some of the kids are starting to use it now. So, yeah, that was all.
Maura?
Just keep your eyes out for, the Coastal Advisory Commission is going to do another public session like they did in Hummerock about a month and a half ago to invite residents that are, just typically here in the summer to come and hear about the coastal resiliency plan and what was already presented. So just keep an eye out for that date. I don't want to say what it is because I know they're still working through a final date, but in the next couple of weeks to give folks up along the Sandhills, Egypt, and Minot an opportunity to, give us some feedback and also hear, some different input from Tim Kelly and some of the folks on the commission, which is nice.
Sean has one more
Tricia, I had
thing.
one other thing. Tricia, can you look up and tell us what the status is with the lease on the Blueberry Field on 123?
The what?
The Christmas tree?
Yes, yeah. I believe it's Mr.
That's town
Briggs.
property?
It was a 99-year lease, and some people might think it's coming up pretty soon.
Okay, I'll have to get with you for more.
A berry farm?
Yeah. Up diagonal across the
Town owned land?
Yeah.
They're really good blueberries this year from
I
that
heard
farm.
that too.
Very good.
Not that I would change anything.
Oh, yeah, we have the water, some water,
Just
water,
well.
yeah, across from the nursery.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody else set?
That's it. Thanks, Marty.
All right. At this time, we'll be moving into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation concerning fire and TSCA unions, and also to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property concerning Greenbush MBTA town parking lot, the Doherty property, and the Ellis property. I declare that these matters should be discussed in executive session because to discuss them in an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the position of the public body. Can I have a motion?
Sure. Move into executive session to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation concerning the fire and TSCA unions, as well as to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property concerning Greenbush, the town and MBTA parking lot, the Doherty property, and the Ellis property.
Second?
Second by Mr. Vignani.
Not to return to open session?
Not to return to open session, correct.
Correct. Sorry. That was a poor motion.
Second, not to return to open session.
Not to return to open session. There's my motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote?
Roll call vote?
Mr. O'Toole?
Yes.
Mr. Vignani?
Yes.
Mr. Dennehy?
Yes.
Ms. Hearn?
Yes.
And Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Can I?